The day I awakened, 300 people learned exactly how cruel a single blank screen could be. The ceremony hall had been built to make ordinary teenagers feel like legends. Gold-class emblems floated above the stage. A crystal archway filled the ceiling with sword strokes, burning dragons, and shadowy assassins. Every time someone touched the awakening stone, their future appeared 10 feet tall for the entire crowd to admire. One boy received Flame Knight, and his family screamed as though he had already killed a dragon. Another awakened as a storm archer. A recruiter offered her a contract before she stepped off the platform. In our world, a class was a life sentence people celebrated. Swordsmen received the same 12 branches. Fire mages climbed from sparks to infernos. Even the rare S ranks followed paths someone else had already drawn. Then I placed my hand on the stone. The giant screen showed my name, Wyatt. Under it, where a class should have appeared, there was nothing. No emblem, no rank, no starting skill. The crystal arch went dark, and the silence lasted just long enough for hope to become embarrassment. Someone in the back laughed. A second person joined him. Soon the entire hall sounded like it had discovered the same joke. The examiner tapped the stone twice, then gave me the careful expression people used around damaged furniture. Possible incomplete awakening, he said. Please step aside. My personal status window contained one line. Create new skill. That was all. A girl waiting near the exit leaned over to see it. Harper had awakened earlier as a bellcaster, a rare sound class with silver rings floating behind her shoulders. She had spent most of the ceremony recording reactions on a little crystal camera. Maybe the rest is loading, she whispered. Maybe your manners are loading. She grinned and pointed her camera at me. Good, the blank one talks. The examiner sent me toward the group marked for secondary evaluation. That was a pleasant name for people with useless classes, low mana, or unusual conditions. We were required to clear a controlled beginner gate before receiving even a civilian status card. The rule existed to discover whether weak awakenings had hidden value. Everyone knew it was usually a funeral for hope. I sat on a bench beneath the stage and pressed Create New Skill. The world changed. Every spell in the room came apart in front of me. Harper's silver bells were no longer one skill. I saw sound at their center, rings around it, a movement trigger, a mana cost, and a growth path tied to repeated performances. The Flame Knight on stage looked like a stack of glowing pieces pretending to be one solid thing. Fire, armor, injury, mana, survival. Classes were not sacred trees. They were completed recipes. My empty screen showed two pale components already waiting for me. Wind and step. Beneath them were empty spaces for a trigger, cost, and growth condition. I selected movement because it was the only trigger I owned. Stamina became the cost. Repetition became the growth condition. A tiny preview appeared. Breeze skip. Move one short step in the chosen direction. It sounded less impressive than walking. I created it anyway. Cold air curled around my right shoe. I pushed off the floor and vanished from the bench. 1 instant later, I hit a snack machine shoulder first hard enough to make every packet inside fall at once. Harper lowered her camera. Did you mean to do that? I picked a bag of chips from the floor. I meant to get lunch. The dash had carried me 6 feet. It also drained enough stamina to make my legs shake. By every normal standard, breeze skip was a terrible skill. But when I used it again, the cold line around my shoe became slightly brighter. Repetition was not a promise written at the end of a locked branch. It was happening now. So I spent the next hour crossing the secondary waiting room in violent little bursts. The first 10 attempts ended against walls. The next 20 looked like badly controlled skating. By the 50th, I could choose where I stopped. By the 100th, the distance had doubled, and the stamina cost had begun to fall. The other candidates stopped laughing. Harper kept filming until the examiner ordered her into a separate group. Before she left, she pointed at the cold blue marks crossing the floor. If you die in there, can I use the footage? If I die in there, delete the first 10 attempts. No deal. Our beginner gate opened in the basement beneath the hall. It was supposed to contain 6 moss rats and 1 sleepy hornwolf. The secondary candidates would enter with 3 licensed guards, kill 1 creature each, and leave. Nobody was expected to look heroic. The gate turned black the moment I crossed it. The stone doorway slammed behind us. Red cracks spread across the dungeon ceiling. One of the guards shouted that the gate was mutating, then a horn longer than his body punched through his chest. The creature that stepped over him was not sleepy. The horn wolf stood twice as tall as a horse. Black plates covered its shoulders, and wind screamed around the curved blade growing from its skull. The other 2 guards tried their fixed skills. One used Shield Rush, because that was the first branch every guard class received. The wolf split his shield. The other used Binding Chain because her class gave her no other control skill at that rank. The wolf dragged her across the chamber and threw her into a pillar. Everyone ran. My objective was simple. The gate door had sealed, the guards were down, and the Horn Wolf was between us and the emergency crystal. If nobody touched that crystal, the dungeon would finish mutating with us inside. I needed to cross the room. The wolf lowered its head. Wind gathered along its horn until the stone beneath it peeled upward in strips. Breeze Skip could move me 12 feet. The emergency crystal was 80 feet away. I stepped once. The wind blade passed through the place where my chest had been and cut 4 pillars in half. I landed sideways, pushed off before my shoe settled, and stepped again. Cold blue lines flashed across the chamber. Each dash sharpened the next. The wolf attacked the pattern it expected, but I had no predetermined pattern. I could revise my movement every time my foot touched stone. On my 5th step, I saw Harper beneath a fallen pillar. She was not supposed to be in my group. The mutation had merged 2 beginner roots, dropping her team into the same chamber. Her silver bells were cracked. A second wind blade was already crossing the floor toward her. The emergency crystal was 10 feet away. I turned away from it. 3 steps carried me back through the storm. I caught Harper by the coat and used Breeze Skip again. The skill screamed through both legs as it tried to move 2 people. We disappeared beneath the wind blade. It shaved a strip from my sleeve and buried itself in the wall. We hit the ground beside the emergency crystal. Harper stared at the ruined sleeve. "You came back? Your camera has my good attempts." I slapped the crystal. Nothing happened. The mutation had already swallowed the exit system. The Horn Wolf turned. Its black armor lifted, drawing every loose current in the room toward its body. The guards had failed. The emergency route had failed. If I did nothing, the wolf would kill everyone before the gate reopened. That left one useful direction: forward. I could see Breeze Skip's components in my status: wind, step, movement, stamina, repetition. The skill had reached basic mastery after 137 uses. A new option glowed beneath it: revise. I had no new components, but I could change the balance. I pushed more of the skill into step and less into wind. The blue trail dimmed, the distance shortened. In exchange, the movement became sharp enough to place my foot exactly where I wanted. The Horn Wolf charged. I ran directly at it. Someone shouted behind me. The wolf's horn carried enough force to cut the chamber in half, and I had no weapon. That was what everyone saw. What I saw was the guard's broken chain lying across the floor and the narrow gap beneath the wolf's armored jaw. One step put me on the chain. The next carried me beneath the horn. The third planted my heel on the hanging links and snapped them upward around the wolf's front leg. Its own charge pulled the chain tight. The monster stumbled, and the tip of its horn struck the floor. I stepped onto its head. For one breath, I stood between the black plates while the creature tore at the stone beneath me. Then I used Breeze Skip straight down. My boot drove the horn through its skull. The impact flattened the air. Cracks raced across the chamber. The giant body slid to a stop at Harper's feet, and I remained standing on its head with one shoe buried in black armor. Nobody cheered. They had not caught up yet. I pulled my foot free, adjusted the torn collar of my school jacket, and looked at the sealed gate. "Does anyone know if this counts as one moss rat?" Harper started laughing first. It sounded slightly hysterical. The other candidates followed because they were alive and had no better response. The Horn Wolf dissolved into blue ash. A list of components filled my vision: horn, blade, charge, impact, kill, and cooldown. Beneath them appeared a second button: dismantle defeated skill. I selected the wolf's wind blade. The completed ability cracked into pieces, and 3 of them slid into my empty tree: blade, projectile, kill. Then something solid struck the floor. It was a black metal key no longer than my finger. Its surface held the outline of a door beneath a dark sun. When I picked it up, every crack in the dungeon pointed toward it. Origin key acquired. First gate resonance detected. The gate finally reopened 20 minutes later. Rescue hunters waited outside with stretchers. The examiner who had called my awakening incomplete rushed forward, saw the dead guards, and asked who had activated the emergency weapon. I walked past him carrying the Horn Wolf's severed core under one arm. Harper followed with her camera held high. The recording showed only blue streaks, a collapsing monster, and me standing where the attack should have landed. By sunset, the clip had spread through every hunter forum in the city. Most people insisted it was edited. I preferred that. If they understood Breeze Skip already, my next entrance would be less entertaining. The Awakening office did not know what to do with me. My status still showed no class. Standard licenses required a class category, so the examiner handed me a temporary civilian card and recommended I choose safe work. I placed the Horn Wolf core on his desk hard enough to crack the glass. "When is the practical license exam?" He looked from the core to the blank line on my status. 3 days. Good. Fix the desk before then. For those 3 days, I turned my apartment into a workshop. The hidden pieces inside skills became clearer whenever I watched them closely. I studied public battle footage, slowing down spell recordings until I could separate their cores from their forms. Watching did not give me a component. I needed direct contact, true understanding, a cleared trial, or a defeated ability. Still, study showed me what was possible. Blade could turn wind into a cutting edge, but the result was an ordinary air slash. Projectile could send it farther, but every beginner wind mage already had something similar. I had no interest in rebuilding other people's branches. The point of an empty tree was that nobody had planted bad ideas in it yet. On the second night, Harper climbed through my window. I lived on the 5th floor. She hung from a silver sound ring, kicked the glass shut behind her, and dropped 3 grocery bags onto my table. "You have a front door," I said. "Front doors create boring footage." Her bellcaster class let her turn tones into solid rings. She wanted to become the most famous field broadcaster in the hunter world, which explained why common survival instincts seemed optional to her. She had brought energy drinks, fried noodles, and every recording she had made during Awakening Day. "I want exclusive access," she said. "Whatever your class is doing, I record it first." "I do not have a class." That answer got 12 million views. She made one of her silver bells ring. I pressed create new skill and watched the pieces separate. Sound formed the core. Ring was the form. Finger movement triggered the note. Mana paid for it. Repeated performances strengthened it. When I reached toward the bell, Harper pulled it away. "Can you steal skills?" "No, I can appreciate their construction." That sounded like a yes wearing a nice coat. I spent an hour listening. At the end, my status did not give me sound, but it showed a mastery condition. Understand one tone well enough to reproduce its effect without the original class. Harper saw my expression and rang the bell beside my ear for the next 6 hours. By dawn, I hated one perfect note more than I had ever hated another human being. I also owned sound. The practical license exam took place inside an armored stadium. Candidates had to damage class-rated targets while examiners measured control, output, and speed. Fixed classes made the process simple. A swordsman cut, a mage cast, a summoner summoned. The board compared the result with a table written decades earlier. My turn arrived, and the examiner stared at the empty class line for a long time. "Use your strongest registered skill." "None of them are registered." "Then use the only one you have." I looked at the target 50 feet away. Breeze skip could put me beside it, but the exam required a ranged strike. Wind, sound, projectile, finger movement, cooldown, precision growth. The pieces slid together in my vision. The preview showed a blue spark no larger than a marble. Pocket Thunder. I created it. Harper leaned over the barrier. "That name is adorable. Keep talking and I will test the range behind me." I snapped my fingers. A tiny blue sphere jumped from my hand, crossed the stadium, and tapped the target with a soft pop. The score display showed 12. The minimum passing score was 100. Laughter rolled through the stands. One examiner covered his face. Harper zoomed her camera in on the smoking dot at the center of the target. I snapped again. The second sphere hit the same dot. The score rose to 14. I spent the next minute firing whenever the cooldown ended. Every shot landed inside the mark left by the first. The number crawled upward. 20, 28, 41. The crowd grew bored. Then something below the arena roared. The target wall bulged. Steel plates burst into the stands, and a glassback ogre smashed through the containment gate with half a broken restraint around its neck. Transparent crystal covered its body. 3 exam hunters attacked immediately. A sword bounced from its shoulder. Fire spread harmlessly across its back. The ogre swung once and sent all 3 through the target wall. The audience exits locked to contain the breach. The ogre looked up at several thousand trapped people. Then it smiled. My objective had changed from passing an exam to keeping the glassback ogre away from the stands. The exits were sealed, the licensed hunters were unconscious, and the creature's crystal armor turned every ordinary attack into decoration. Fortunately, Pocket Thunder had spent the last minute striking one exact spot. The ogre charged the nearest seating section. People crushed against the locked doors. Harper stood on the barrier with her silver rings spinning, trying to pull children across the gap one at a time. She glanced at me as the monster passed the ruined target. "Wyatt," she called, "please tell me the cute spark does something surprising." I raised my hand. The ogre was not my target. The black dot behind its right eye was. Every use had taught Pocket Thunder how to fit more sound into a smaller sphere. The first shots were weak because the skill grew through precision, not brute force. It had now struck the same mark 27 times without drifting the width of a hair. I snapped. The blue sphere entered the smoking dot on the practice wall, disappeared, and burst out the other side as a needle of compressed thunder. It crossed the ogre's open mouth and punched through the clear armor from within. For a moment, the monster kept running, then a blue line shone through its skull. The glassback ogre fell at the foot of the stands so hard that every locked exit shook open. Its enormous hand stopped inches from a little boy's shoe. Harper's bells fell silent. The score display above the arena flickered, tried to measure what had happened, and showed 999 before burning out. I walked to the examiner's table and set my temporary card on it. Does the damaged target still count as my score? The lead examiner stared at the hole through the ogre, then at the smaller hole in the target wall, then back at me. Behind him, thousands of people had become perfectly quiet. You passed, he said. I was at 41. You passed very loudly. Harper dropped beside me and pushed her camera close to my face. That was the best tiny attack I have ever seen. It is the only tiny attack you have ever seen. Exactly, no competition. The ogre's defeated skill gave me crystal, armor, and impact. I dismantled its charge and kept the pieces. Its body also contained a second origin key. Before I could reach it, an elegant hand lifted the key from the broken crystal. The man standing beside the corpse had not entered through any door. Adrian wore a white coat without a speck of dust on it. A black wheel of interlocked class emblems floated behind him. Everyone recognized that wheel. His apex class had made him the highest-ranked hunter in the region before he turned 25. The signature ability called Ending Engine allowed him to feed completed skills into that wheel and release their combined force as one attack. He held the key to the stadium lights. It matched the one in my pocket. Interesting wound, he said. Harper stopped talking. Even the examiners straightened. Adrian looked at me with the pleasant curiosity of a collector examining a new blade. Which branch teaches that? Mine. There is no class listed. Then the answer should be easy. His smile sharpened. The black wheel turned once, and every loose piece of glass in the arena rose from the floor. He could have crushed the stands without moving another finger. Instead, he closed his hand around the origin key, and the glass settled. I look forward to seeing what an empty tree produces, he said. Try to make it worth harvesting. The insult was delivered gently enough that half the room did not recognize it. I did. Bring a larger wheel, I told him. Adrian laughed and walked away. People cleared a path 30 feet wide. My license arrived that evening with no class category and a new designation printed in red. Variable combatant. The exam board had invented it because none of their existing boxes could hold me. I used my first gate payment to buy a long black coat with enough inner pockets for cores, snacks, and anything else I might turn into a skill. Harper said it looked dramatic. I told her that was an unfortunate accident. She recorded the answer while I adjusted the collar. Within a week, the glassback clip reached every screen in the city. People called Pocket Thunder a hidden legendary skill. Some claimed Adrian had secretly trained me. Others insisted I was a disguised S-rank. Nobody guessed that I had made the ability 2 minutes before firing it. That suited me until the city tournament announced its reward. The tournament was an old public contest for newly licensed hunters. Its champion received money, rank points, and one rare component extracted from a cleared relic. That year, the component was command. The moment I saw it, 3 possible skills appeared in my mind. A command could trigger a projectile without movement. It could tell crystal armor when to harden. It could make wind change direction after leaving my hand. More importantly, it was a component Adrian did not own. I entered before Harper finished reading the announcement. You know Cole is competing, she said. Should I? She made an offended noise on behalf of the entire city. Cole was the undefeated prodigy of the piercing star class. His skill tree contained only spear techniques, but every technique had reached a level people twice his age could not match. He was famous for winning without letting an opponent cross the center line. Harper showed me a recording. Cole stood in a ruined arena with a red spear resting across his shoulders. 5 defeated hunters lay around him. He had the relaxed grin of someone who considered danger a form of applause. He already said the command component belongs to him, Harper added. Then he can hold it until I arrive. The tournament filled a stadium 3 times larger than the exam grounds. My first opponent was a stone boxer whose arms could become granite. He spent the opening minute explaining that tricks would not work against a real combat class. I used breeze skip once. He punched the air where I had been. I stopped behind him, touched 2 fingers to the center of his back, and fired Pocket Thunder at the lowest possible force. His stone arms locked together from the shock. He fell face first outside the ring. The audience took longer to react than the fight lasted. My second opponent was a frost dancer. She covered the arena in ice and waited for me to slip. Breeze skip had crashed me into enough apartment walls to become very good at unstable surfaces. I crossed her frozen field in 3 cyan flashes, stepped onto the flat of her spinning blade, and asked whether she had chosen such a complicated class because skating lessons were expensive. She tried to answer. Pocket Thunder cut the ice beneath her feet, and she slid out of bounds. By the quarterfinal, people had stopped laughing when my empty class line appeared. They leaned forward. By the semifinal, they counted down Pocket Thunder's cooldown with Harper. Cole watched every match from the opposite tunnel. He was taller than I expected, with close-cropped brown hair and a red spear that hummed whenever anyone dangerous approached. During my semifinal, the weapon started humming before I entered the ring. Cole looked down at it and smiled. My semifinal opponent had an A-rank skill called Fortress Skin. He planted both feet, crossed his arms, and invited me to use my little spark. The crowd began chanting for Pocket Thunder. I could have aimed for his eye. Instead, I used Breeze Skip to circle him so quickly that Cyan Wind wrapped the ring. The fixed defense skill hardened toward the nearest threat. Each time I changed sides, the armor shifted. After 12 steps, the stone floor beneath him had been polished smooth by the storm. I stopped in front of him. His armor rushed toward me. I stepped aside. The weight turned faster than his body could follow. He spun out of the ring like a thrown statue, crashed through a sponsor banner, and landed upright in an empty fountain. Harper's voice rang over the stadium speakers. He did not even use the thunder. The crowd roared. Cole met me at the center of the arena for the final. No speeches, no staged hostility. He stabbed his spear into the ground and looked at my shoes. I watched the Hornwolf footage, he said. Your movement changes every time. You found the play button. Impressive. His grin widened. I only need to hit you once. Most people start with lower goals. The signal bell sounded. Cole's first thrust crossed the entire ring. Red light extended from his spear in a straight line, too fast for the audience to follow. I used Breeze Skip, but he had aimed at the place my right foot preferred to land. The spear tip cut the edge of my coat. That was the first exchange, and it told me everything important. Cole was not following a branch like an obedient student. He had mastered one fixed path until it behaved like instinct. He could read the small habits inside my unpredictable movement. The second exchange turned the ring red. Cole released 100-point rain. Spear lights filled every open space around me. I crossed between them in short blue dashes, but he tightened the pattern with each step. The crowd saw red lines close around a single streak of cyan. Harper stopped narrating. One spear grazed my shoulder. Another opened my sleeve. The third struck the black origin key in my inner pocket and tore it free. Cole pinned the key to the ground. That important? He asked. The coat was more expensive. I snapped Pocket Thunder toward his face. He twisted the spear and split the sphere before it reached him. Blue lightning ran down the red shaft, and he drove it into the floor. He had just blocked the attack that killed the ogre. The audience erupted for him. Cole raised his spear. Now move seriously. I wanted command. Cole stood between me and the reward. If I lost, my component growth stalled while Adrian continued collecting origin keys. The spear mattered because it could predict Breeze Skip and divide Pocket Thunder. Everything was clear enough. I started walking backward. Boos rolled from Cole's supporters. He followed, spear low, denying every angle. I was not retreating from him. I was moving toward the winner's pedestal at the edge of the ring. The command component floated inside a crystal above it. Tournament barriers were designed to stop attacks, not candidates. I placed one hand on the pedestal as Cole attacked. The spear struck my palm against the crystal. The reward shattered. Command entered my empty tree. Gravity had appeared in my component library after I studied the force inside the glassback ogre's fall. Command gave it a trigger. Stamina paid the cost. Mastery would make the affected space more precise. I created one new skill while Cole's spear was still pressing toward my chest. Polite fall. He felt the change and jumped back. The air above the arena darkened as though something enormous had leaned over us. I brushed crystal dust from my glove. Kneel. Gravity struck the ring. Every loose weapon slammed flat. The broken pedestal folded into the floor. Cole caught himself on one knee, both hands locked around his spear while the red shaft bent beneath him. Outside the arena, not one spectator felt so much as a breeze. I had shaped the first use to end exactly at the boundary line. Cole roared and forced his foot forward. The floor cracked beneath his boot. He rose another inch, muscles shaking, and drove the base of his spear into the stone. His fixed class had no answer to gravity. He was simply strong enough to argue with it. That earned him my attention. He launched his ultimate from one knee. A red star formed at the spear tip, bright enough to cast shadows through the stadium. The announcer shouted for the barriers to rise. Harper's bells flew around the nearest seating sections. Cole threw the star. I did not leave the starting circle. Fall, I said. The red star turned downward. It struck the empty stone between us and carved a crater so deep the bottom disappeared into smoke. Cole's spear followed. Then Cole followed his spear. The only things still upright were me and the narrow strip of floor under my shoes. For several seconds, nobody made a sound. Cole looked up from the crater, blood running from his nose. Then he began laughing. One day, he said, I am going to make you take a real step. I looked at the hundreds of cyan marks Breeze Skip had left across the earlier rounds. You should have chosen a less crowded ambition. The officials declared me champion after deciding the arena still technically existed. My new license rank jumped 3 levels. The city feeds named me the Empty King, which I disliked because it sounded like a restaurant with no menu. Harper preferred Skillsmith. I told her both were terrible. She used Skillsmith in every recording after that. The prize pedestal had one more surprise. When the shattered crystal sank into the floor, stone gears turned beneath it. A staircase opened under the arena, carrying heat and the smell of roasted meat into the crater. Words appeared above the descent. Banquet trial. Recovery component awaits the final guest. Across the city, Adrian's black wheel began to turn. The banquet trial had been sealed beneath the arena for more than a century. According to the glowing words over the stairs, it opened only when someone won the command component without inheriting a command-based class. That explained why the tournament officials knew nothing about it. Fixed Paths had spent 100 years making the same predictable choices. I started down before the smoke cleared. Harper grabbed the back of my coat. The stairs are glowing red. They match the lining. Cole climbed out of the crater and rested his bent spear across one shoulder. I am coming. You lost. I did not lose the stairs. The trial allowed 3 guests, so I kept him. Harper entered before either of us could object. She claimed the camera counted as a survival tool. The camera had more armor than she did, so I could not completely dismiss the argument. The staircase ended inside a kitchen large enough to roast giants. Rivers of orange broth crossed the black stone floor. Iron pans hung from chains thicker than trees. At the far end, a furnace beast turned on a spit above a volcano. It looked like a bull built from ovens. Flames poured between its ribs. 6 iron legs held up a round body covered in handles, vents, and cooking blades. A bright green component floated behind the furnace in a glass serving dish. Recovery. My objective was to claim it before the dungeon cooked us. The heat doubled every minute. If we stayed too long, the trial would turn our bodies into ingredients. The first obstacle was not the beast. It was the table. Stone seats rose around us. Words burned across the tabletop. No guest may fight hungry. 3 covered plates appeared. Harper lifted hers and found a roasted scorpion the size of a shoe. Cole received a bowl of blue soup that tried to climb out. My plate held a perfectly ordinary sandwich. I distrusted it immediately. Cole stabbed his soup. It wrapped around the spear and pulled him across the table. Harper rang a bell at her scorpion. The note cracked its shell, and a cloud of pepper exploded into her face. She sneezed hard enough to fire a sound ring through the ceiling. My sandwich remained still. I took one bite. The bread screamed. I finished it out of spite. The table vanished and the furnace beast dropped from its spit. Its 6 legs struck the floor in sequence. Every impact sent a wave through the broth rivers, and boiling liquid rose around us. Cole met it first. His spear pierced an iron knee, but flame blasted from the wound and threw him back. Harper used solid sound rings to redirect the broth. I told the nearest wave to fall, flattening it before it reached us. The new skill worked, but Polite Fall drained stamina faster than Breeze Skip. The larger the command area, the more weight pressed through my body. After stopping the second wave, my knees shook. The beast opened every oven door along its sides. 6 streams of white flame crossed the kitchen. I used Breeze Skip to pull Harper clear. Cole cut through one stream with his spear and took the second across his shoulder. His combat coat ignited. He rolled through blue soup, which solved the fire and created several new problems. The furnace beast healed while we fought. Every dent glowed orange and straightened. Every pierced joint sealed. The recovery component behind it was feeding the trial boss. To win, I needed that recovery for myself. The trial had already given me food when I finished the screaming sandwich. Sitting was available from the stone table's rule. Recovery floated behind the beast, close enough for create new skill to recognize but not close enough to own. I needed direct contact. I crossed beneath the creature with Breeze Skip. Cooking blades chopped down around me. One cut my side before I reached the glass dish. My fingers touched green light. Recovery joined my library. I combined food, recovery, sitting, stamina, and repetition. The preview made me stop despite the inferno. Snack break. While seated and eating, restore damage and stamina. Harper read the name over my shoulder. You made lunch into a combat skill? The dungeon started it. I created the skill. The table rose again when I commanded it. I sat down in the middle of the kitchen, opened the emergency candy from my coat, and took a bite. Green light ran across the wound in my side. The torn flesh closed before the furnace beast finished turning. Cole stared at me while wrestling blue soup from his spear. Are you taking a break? A skilled fighter knows when to recover. You have fought for 40 seconds. The furnace beast charged. I remained seated. Each bite restored the stamina Polite Fall had consumed. I pointed at the monster and told its front legs to kneel. The iron limbs slammed down. Its rear legs kept running, flipping the enormous body over my table. White fire covered everything. Snack break repaired the burns as fast as they formed. My candy tasted like smoke. I was more offended by that than by the attempted murder. The beast righted itself. The vents along its ribs opened wider, drawing the volcano into its core. Harper shouted that the temperature was rising beyond the camera's limit. Cole tried to pull me from the seat. If you stand up, does the healing stop? Yes. That is the stupidest legendary ability I have ever seen. It is not legendary yet. A shadow appeared at the top of the furnace. Adrian had entered without accepting a plate. The ending engine behind him swallowed the trial's rule as black light. 3 completed skills rotated inside the wheel: a glacier spell, a sun lance, and a giant's hammer. He had fed them to his class before arriving. He looked down at my stone table and the burning candy wrapper beside it. "You are disappointing me," he said. "Wait until dessert." Adrian released the sun lance. Golden fire crossed the kitchen, wider than the central bridge. Harper's sound barriers shattered before it reached us. Cole planted his spear and was driven backward. The furnace beast opened every vent, adding its own flame to the attack. Adrian expected me to dodge. That would leave Harper and Cole behind. I placed one hand flat on the table, down. Polite Fall seized the combined beam. Golden fire bent in the middle like a tree beneath snow. It struck the floor on both sides of the table and carved 2 glowing trenches through the kitchen. The stone beneath my chair remained untouched. I took another bite while the attack burned around me. Adrian's smile disappeared. The strain crushed cracks through my chair. Snack break restored my stamina between breaths. Food powered recovery. Recovery kept Polite Fall active. For the first time, 2 abilities I had created were supporting each other. That was more valuable than the component behind the furnace. When the beam ended, Harper lowered a melted camera shield. Cole stood with his clothes smoking and his mouth slightly open. Adrian watched me set the candy stick down with deliberate care. "You can combine finished abilities," he said. "No, I can make them good company." The furnace beast charged through the smoke. I snapped pocket thunder at one of the hanging pans. Blue lightning hit the iron, bounced into a second pan, then a third. The beast followed the noise, trying to crush me before the cooldown ended. I waited. The largest pan swung over its head. I told the chain to fall. The pan covered the furnace beast like a lid. Its own fire compressed beneath it. Every vent bulged. I fired pocket thunder through the handle. The tiny blue sphere entered the sealed space. For one silent instant, the pan rose an inch. Then the furnace beast became the loudest meal in history. The blast launched the pan through the ceiling and left a perfectly cooked ring of monster meat around the crater. Harper's remaining camera slowly turned toward me. "You used a frying pan as a cannon," she said. "It was available." Cole pulled a strip of roasted meat from his shoulder guard, tasted it, and nodded. "Needs salt." Adrian dropped beside the defeated beast. The 3rd origin key had appeared in its core. He reached it before me and fed it into the black wheel. I used Breeze Skip to place a boot on his white coat. He caught my ankle with one hand. The contact sent enough force through my leg to crack the floor. Snack break was no longer active because my chair had exploded. Adrian could have broken every bone below my knee. Instead, he pushed me away and let the ending engine turn. "Your little inventions interest me now," he said. "The furnace accepts completed skills as fuel." I wondered whether custom work would burn hotter. I landed beside Cole. "You are welcome to stand closer and test it." The wheel opened behind Adrian. Inside it, I glimpsed thousands of dark spaces waiting for abilities. He had not gathered 3 skills. He had prepared room for every class tree in the world. "Soon," he said. "Make as many as you can before then." He vanished in a column of black emblems. The origin key went with him. The trial ended. Recovery remained mine because I had authored it into Snack Break before Adrian touched the key. The dungeon rewarded Harper with a bell made from volcanic glass and straightened Cole's spear. It offered me a golden chef's hat. I dismantled it for cloth. The moment we returned to the arena, every emergency siren in the city began to howl. 3 gates had ruptured at once. One opened over the river district. One split the northern rail line. The 3rd appeared in the sky, directly above the longest bridge in the city. Dark creatures poured from all 3 while the first gate's symbol burned behind the clouds. Adrian had taken the key because the trial was never his real objective. He needed simultaneous destruction to overload the barriers around the first gate. Harper looked at the emergency feeds. "Which one do we choose?" I buttoned the only part of my coat that was not burned. "The one with the largest audience." The river district had both the bridge and the sky gate. We reached it on Harper's sound rings while Cole rode the final 100 feet standing on his spear. Thousands of people were trapped in cars. The bridge supports had cracked, and a crystal-backed giant crawled from the water beneath them. It resembled the ogre from the exam, except this creature wore an entire ruined gate across its shoulders. Every attack made it larger. Hunter spells struck the crystal, shattered, and sank into its body as light. The boss fed on impact. The strongest local teams were already losing. One fire blast added molten armor to its fist. A sword ultimate increased the sharpness of the bridge plates fused to its back. Every desperate attack taught the monster a new way to destroy the district. The commander shouted at everyone to stop fighting, but panic had already become momentum. A final missile hit the boss's chest. It grew tall enough to place both hands on the bridge. Concrete screamed. Cars slid toward the broken edge. Harper launched silver rings beneath them, but there were too many. Cole drove his spear through a collapsing support and held it in place with both arms. My objective was to keep the bridge standing, kill a monster that grew stronger when attacked, and do both before Adrian finished opening the first gate. I used breeze skip across the falling cars. One step moved a child into Harper's ring. The next kicked a bus back onto level road. Polite fall pressed flying debris into the bridge instead of letting it reach the crowd. The boss swung at me. Its fist was the size of a building. I could have dodged. Instead, I raised one hand. The impact drove me through 3 lanes of concrete. The whole bridge bent around my body. Snack break could heal damage, but only if I sat and ate. There was no chair beneath the river, and I had used my last candy in the trial. Black light spilled from the monster's fist into my status. Impact, storage, injury, cooldown, survival. The pieces fitted together around the pane. Damage deposit. Store force received as a coin. Refund it through one chosen strike. I created the skill before the fist lifted. A black coin edged in gold appeared above my palm. It was no larger than a button. The monster hit me again. The bridge sank lower. The coin doubled in size. Harper screamed my name through every bell in the district. Cole tried to reach me, but I told his spear to stay down and hold the support. The boss raised both fists. I looked up from the crater and smiled at the first ability I had ever made specifically to be punched. That one was a deposit, I said. Try the premium plan. The giant brought both fists down. Damage deposit caught the force before it crushed me. Black cracks spread across the coin, then filled with gold. The bridge snapped behind the monster. One half began to fall toward the river with hundreds of people still trapped on it. I had enough stored power to kill the boss. I did not have enough hands to hold the bridge and strike at the same time, so I made the monster help. Polite Fall seized its left arm and dragged the fist into the broken support. Crystal fingers punched through concrete. I commanded the hand to stay. The boss roared and pulled, but its own weight now held the bridge above the river. That gave Harper time to spread her bells across the crowd. Each ring became a silver platform. People jumped from cars and slid down solid sound toward the shore. She shouted instructions the entire time, somehow turning a disaster into a performance. Children first, cameras second. Anyone pushing gets dropped in the shallow part. Cole remained beneath the highest fracture with his spear braced across his shoulders. Blood ran down both arms. He saw me step out of the crater and laughed despite the weight crushing him. That count as a serious step? He yelled. No witnesses saw it. Harper has 6 cameras here. 5. One melted. The boss tore its hand free. The bridge lurched. I used breeze skip to reach the broken center and caught a hanging cable with my left hand. The full weight of 3 bridge sections pulled through my shoulder. Damage deposit took part of it, but storing force did not remove the need to stand somewhere. The concrete beneath my shoes broke. I told it to stay down. Gravity pressed the shattered road into a temporary foundation. I stood on that narrow patch, holding the cable while the rest of the bridge hung over empty air. The boss climbed toward me. Crystal plates opened across its chest, showing every attack it had absorbed. Fire, swords, missiles, and impact burned together. It had learned that striking me only made the black coin larger, so it chose the civilians instead. Its chest fired. I could not move without dropping the bridge. Harper threw every sound ring between the beam and the crowd. The first shattered, the second folded. Cole pulled his spear free and launched it across the district. The red weapon pierced the beam, slowing it for one breath. That was enough. I snapped my right hand. Pocket thunder entered the black coin. Damage deposit allowed one chosen strike. It did not care whether that strike came from my fist. The coin swallowed the tiny blue sphere, compressed every blow I had survived around it, and turned into a black sun the size of my palm. The monster's beam reached me. I flicked the coin. It moved with the harmless speed of spare change. The black disc touched the beam and cut a perfect tunnel through the center. It touched the boss's chest next. Every stored impact returned at once. There was no explosion near the bridge. I had shaped the refund forward. The giant disappeared inside a black and gold line that crossed the river, passed between 2 towers, and continued beyond the city wall. Clouds divided above it. The far hills acquired a new valley. The boss remained standing for half a second with a circular absence through its body. Then the pieces fell away from the bridge. I kept holding the cable. People on Harper's silver platforms looked from the empty space where the monster had been to me. The entire river district went quiet except for the creak of steel. Even the emergency sirens seemed embarrassed by their volume. I pulled the bridge section upward one hand at a time. Cole returned, drove his spear through the aligned supports, and locked them together. Harper carried the final civilians off the road. Only when the bridge was empty did I let Polite Fall release the temporary foundation. The broken center settled into the river instead of collapsing onto anyone. The commander who had ordered everyone to stop attacking approached through the dust. He had lost his helmet, 2 weapons, and whatever speech he had planned. "What rank are you?" he asked. I looked at the valley beyond the walls. Apparently the hill was ranked lower. Harper landed on a sound ring beside me. Her camera rotated around the torn coat, the hanging bridge, and the untouched circle where every civilian had stood. "Skillsmith," she announced. "That was excessive. The refund policy is strict." The river boss dissolved. Impact and storage strengthened in my library. A 4th origin key rose from its core, but before anyone could touch it, the key turned into a black beam and flew toward the center of the city. All 3 ruptured gates did the same. 4 dark lights met above the old cathedral district. Space cracked around them. A door wider than the skyline appeared behind the clouds, covered in thousands of class emblems. The first gate had opened. Charlene Beak opened. Adrian stood on its threshold. His image appeared across every emergency screen. The white coat remained spotless. The ending engine behind him now carried the stolen keys in its outer ring. "Hunters of fixed paths," he said. "Your source has opened." Behind him, an endless staircase descended through a red sky. At the bottom waits the origin furnace. The first skill trees were shaped there. Soon, every branch will return to the same fire. Black threads reached from the gate toward the status windows of nearby hunters. Skills flickered. The threads vanished after a moment, but everyone understood the warning. Adrian was not threatening to kill hunters. He intended to feed their abilities into his class while they watched. Then his broadcast shifted to the river district. The image found me standing on the broken bridge. "Bring your inventions, Wyatt," Adrian said. "I saved space for them." His broadcast ended. The Hunter Council contacted me within a minute. These were the same officials who had invented variable combatant because their forms could not accept a blank class. Now they wanted me to lead an expedition containing the highest-ranked hunters from 6 regions. I accepted for one reason. The first gate contained components nobody alive had seen. The council gathered its teams at the Cathedral Plaza. Fixed classes filled every street. Dragon Lancers, Sun Mages, Phantom Duelists, Beast Callers, and enough famous ultimates to erase a mountain. People cheered each arrival. Banners showed rank emblems. Commentators recited achievements. Cole walked in through the front entrance with his repaired spear. Harper descended on a stack of silver bells while cameras orbited her. I was late because the tailor refused to repair my coat while I was wearing it. When I reached the plaza, the expedition had already entered. Harper had left one sound ring behind with a note attached. "Try not to make a dramatic entrance without me." I folded the note, placed it in my inner pocket, and stepped through the first gate. The staircase behind it did not lead down. It twisted through a red sky without gravity. The expedition's first team had reached a field of floating ruins half a mile away. Between us drifted thousands of broken doorframes, each open to a different hazard: oceans, deserts, storms, and rooms full of teeth. Breeze Skip moved me 12 feet at a time. The nearest safe platform was 200 feet away. I could have jumped through the door maze with repeated dashes. That would work for me, but Adrian was already far ahead, and the expedition would lose hours navigating every floor. I needed a movement skill that treated the dungeon's impossible distance as a minor inconvenience. The first gate made space visible. It flowed between the floating doors like red glass. I placed my hand on an empty frame and felt the component enter my library. The origin key in my pocket supplied marked entrance from its carved symbol. I opened Breeze Skip for revision. Wind remained the core that marked where I left. Step remained the action. I added space and marked entrances. Stamina paid the cost, and repetition continued the growth. The revised skill appeared as a crimson line across the empty frame. Red carpet arrival. One step could now open a doorway to any entrance I had marked. I considered renaming it. Then I imagined Harper's reaction and kept it. I drew one finger through the air. A crimson door appeared, complete with a strip of glowing carpet that extended toward my shoes. On the other side, the expedition's first team fought a swarm of winged blades. I stepped through. The door opened beneath the team commander's ultimate spell. He had created a golden dragon and was about to launch it into the swarm. Red carpet arrival placed the exit above the monsters instead. The dragon flew through my doorway, descended from the wrong direction, and erased the entire swarm in one pass. The commander turned, still holding the pose for an attack he had accidentally fired through me. Who redirected that? I closed the crimson door behind my shoulder. Your technique had poor stage placement. Harper's camera bells rushed toward me. You named it, didn't you? No. My status projected the words red carpet arrival above us. She laughed so hard one camera flew through a hazard door. The first gate contained 12 floors before the origin furnace. Each floor existed to separate fixed classes by their limitations. The ocean floor drowned fire paths. The silent floor weakened sound. The inverted forest turned every forward movement backward. Teams became trapped because their branches offered no alternatives. Red carpet arrival made each prison a door. On the ocean floor, I marked the entrance and opened an exit inside an air pocket above the boss. Harper rang her bells through it, striking from the dry side. On the silent floor, I used pocket thunder because its sound was compressed inside the projectile until impact. On the inverted forest, polite fall told the trees which direction down should be. I did not create a new answer for every obstacle. I brought the abilities that already knew me. Rumors moved faster than the expedition. By the 5th floor, trapped hunters cheered when a crimson line appeared. By the 7th, enemy creatures attacked the door before I opened it. By the 9th, teams stopped asking who was in command and simply waited for my hand to rise. The 10th floor held a famous basilisk that had petrified 2 S ranks. Its gaze spread gray stone across the battlefield. 50 hunters stood behind failing barriers, while the creature prepared to open all 6 eyes. I arrived through the center of its petrifying beam. Red carpet arrival placed my exit door inside the attack. Gray light poured around my black coat and continued through the entrance I had left on the empty floor behind us. The entire beam vanished into a harmless corridor. I adjusted my collar and looked at the gathered expedition. Why did you start without me? Nobody answered. The basilisk opened its eyes wider. I created a doorway directly in front of its face and another beneath its own tail. The creature petrified itself from the rear forward. Cole ended it with one spear thrust and tried very hard not to look impressed. You moved, he said. Walking through a door is not combat movement. Convenient rule. I created the skill. I create the rules. He raised the repaired spear. Then create one where you fight me now. The expedition had reached a rest platform before the final 2 floors. Adrian's black trail climbed ahead of us. We had minutes, not hours, but Cole's expression said he would follow me into the cathedral asking the same question. Harper immediately arranged her cameras. I drew a small circle on the platform. Make me leave this. Cole attacked before the sentence ended. His spear had changed since the tournament. The weapon no longer fired hundreds of predictable lines. It held every bit of force inside one red point. He crossed the circle with a single thrust aimed at my shoulder. Polite fall pushed the spear down. Cole let it strike stone, used the bent shaft as a spring, and kicked at my head. I leaned back without moving my feet. He caught my coat collar between 2 fingers and pulled. Pocket thunder fired from my snap. Cole turned his face, letting the sphere pass his ear. The tiny storm exploded behind him and pushed him forward instead of back. His forehead hit mine. He grinned from an inch away. Move. The red spear came up beneath my guard. I took one deliberate step outside the circle. Cole stopped the blade before it touched me. Harper's bells rang across the platform. The watching S ranks reacted more loudly to that single step than they had to the petrified basilisk. Cole lowered his spear, satisfied. I win. I opened red carpet arrival under his feet. He dropped through a crimson doorway and fell out above the ocean floor 3 levels behind us. Enjoy the walk back, I said. Harper laughed into both hands. That is unbelievably petty. He wanted a meaningful victory. I gave him time to appreciate it. Cole returned 5 minutes later riding his spear through every hazard. He looked furious and delighted. From then on, he stopped asking whether I was strong enough to lead. He focused entirely on finding a better moment to annoy me. The 11th floor had already been cleared. The 12th contained no monsters. It contained the blank cathedral. The building floated upside down beneath the red sky. White stone towers descended toward us like spears. Thousands of class emblems covered its doors, but the center held one empty circle. Every fixed class hunter who approached was thrown backward. Adrian's black trail ended at a shattered sidewall where he had begun forcing his own entrance. I walked to the empty circle. It recognized my status before I touched it. No fixed class detected. Unwritten path accepted. The cathedral turned upright around me. Bells the size of towers rang without sound. A white doorway opened while every legendary hunter in the expedition watched. Adrian stopped breaking the wall. For the first time since we met, he changed his plan because I had arrived. Inside the doorway waited a single glowing question. Choose your legendary class. The blank cathedral offered me everything people thought I should want. Its first legendary class appeared as a golden tree, Void Sovereign. It promised control over space, a throne beyond distance, and 7 completed movement skills stronger than red carpet arrival. Every branch was unlocked. Every technique had been perfected by someone who lived before the first gate closed. I pressed decline. The second tree burned silver. Thunder Saint. Pocket thunder reacted to it like a spark beside the sun. The class offered storms large enough to cover cities and a body that could become lightning. Decline. The third class combined gravity, recovery, and impact into one invincible warpath. The preview showed me standing on a mountain of dead monsters while meteors bowed around my shoulders. That one had excellent presentation. I still pressed decline. Outside the White Chamber, Harper shouted through the cathedral doors. "Are you rejecting legendary classes? They are already finished. That is normally considered a benefit. I dislike used furniture." Each golden tree vanished when I refused it. The cathedral became darker. By the 10th rejection, the floor had disappeared beneath me. By the 20th, only the class screen remained in an empty white space. The final offer had no name. It showed a complete tree containing every skill I had created so far. Breeze Skip occupied the lowest branch. Pocket Thunder, Polite Fall, Snack Break, Damage Deposit, and Red Carpet Arrival spread above it in perfect golden lines. The cathedral offered to finish the empty spaces for me. All I had to do was accept. For one moment, I saw what that future looked like. Every battle had an answer waiting. Every cost had been balanced. Every final evolution was already named. I would become strong enough to stand above nearly anyone in the world. I would also know exactly what I was going to become. That sounded unbearable. I turned the golden screen sideways, lowered it beneath me, and used the legendary class selection as a chair. No, the empty space shook. Class selection refused. Unwritten path requires proof of mastery. 5 statues rose around me. Each was carved in the shape of one of my finished abilities. A cyan figure stood on 1 foot for Breeze Skip. A small blue storm rested between stone fingers for Pocket Thunder. A seated giant held a plate for Snack Break. A faceless judge represented Polite Fall. A black coin turned above the final statue's hand. The cathedral would let me keep creating only if my old skills defeated the perfected forms of their own ideas. It was not copying me. These statues represented ancient techniques built from similar components. Their powers were older, larger, and already complete. The cyan statue moved first. Its movement skill crossed the white space in one flawless line. No wind trail, no wasted step. It struck my chest before Breeze Skip could activate, and sent me skidding across the class screen. The statue appeared behind me again. I used Red Carpet Arrival. A crimson door opened beneath its foot, but it stopped at the threshold and changed direction. The ancient technique had one perfect route to every target. Mine had doors, marks, and a sense of drama. Perfection made it faster. Authorship made me less obedient. I drew 3 doors in the air. The statue took the shortest route. I closed that door and opened the second inside the first. Its perfect line folded. The figure ran through its own path, crossed the white chamber 100 times in a breath, and carved a cyan cage around itself. I stepped beside it and touched the stone chest. "You should take the scenic route." Pocket Thunder broke the statue from within. The blue storm statue attacked next. It opened both hands and created a thunder sphere large enough to swallow the chamber. My little projectile looked insulting beside it. The giant sphere did not fire. It kept gathering power while the statue transformed. Stone wings opened from its back. Lightning horns curved from its head. A robe of storm clouds spread across the empty sky. Harper could see the trial through the door. "That one is doing a lot." I remained seated on the class screen. It waited a long time for an audience. The statue lifted the completed storm. White lightning filled every direction. I held one finger up and waited for Pocket Thunder's cooldown. The ancient attack descended. I snapped. My blue sphere entered the center of the storm. Precision growth had taught it how to find the smallest point carrying the largest effect. The completed technique was too perfect. Every bolt connected to one exact core. Pocket Thunder touched it. The entire storm made one tiny popping sound and vanished. The statue looked at its empty hands. My second snap removed its head. Outside, dozens of legendary hunters stared through the doorway. These were people whose fixed ultimates had earned them monuments. They had just watched a beginner spark erase a cathedral technique. Cole arrived from the ocean floor in time to see the pieces fall. "You were sitting down," he said. The transformation took a while. The Snack Break statue turned the chamber into a feast hall. It ate from a table stretching beyond sight. With every bite, its stone body became larger and more restored. I created my own plate from the trial's reward system, but the only food available was another screaming sandwich. I ate it without hesitation. Familiar enemies deserved no ceremony. Green recovery light covered me. The statue grew until its shoulders scraped the sky. It tried to crush my small table under one palm. I ordered the hand to fall sideways. Polite Fall redirected the blow into the feast. Plates, tables, and mountains of food launched upward. The giant stopped healing when its meal disappeared. I continued eating my sandwich while damage deposit formed a coin from the force that passed through my chair. The statue hit me again. The chair sank into white stone. My black coin grew. Snack break repaired the fracture in my arm. It hit me a third time. The table vanished into a crater. I remained sitting on a small piece of the class screen, chewing calmly while the black coin reached the size of a dinner plate. Harper aimed 3 cameras at the statue. I think it is getting frustrated. The giant opened its mouth and tried to eat me. I tossed the black coin onto its tongue. Refund. The stored force launched the giant upward. It crashed through the empty sky, struck the ceiling of the trial, and shattered into enough stone to build a second cathedral. I finished the sandwich and brushed crumbs from my coat. The final 2 statues attacked together. The judge spoke one command, and gravity turned sideways. The black coin statue caught the force, stored it, and threw it back. One controlled the battlefield. The other grew from every attempt to resist. I used no new skill. Red carpet arrival opened a door below the judge's command and sent the gravity into the black coin statue. It stored the force exactly as expected. I opened the exit door above the judge. The refund returned to its partner. The judge commanded it down. The coin statue stored it again. Each ancient ability behaved perfectly. That was the problem. I let them pass the same force back and forth until the black coin grew larger than both statues. The judge began to crack beneath the increasing gravity. The coin statue's arms bent under the stored impact. Neither could revise the exchange. Their completed paths had nowhere else to go. I walked between them while they destroyed each other. One snap cracked the judge's mouth so it could no longer command. One word pressed the coin statue flat before it could refund. I caught its enormous black disc on one finger and sent it through a crimson doorway. The exit opened outside the cathedral. Adrian had just finished gathering a black attack against the sealed roof. My borrowed coin struck the ending engine from behind. The wheel lurched and his ultimate tore sideways through an empty tower. Harper stared from the doorway. Was that necessary? He looked like he needed help with the entrance. The last statue collapsed. The legendary class screen beneath me dissolved. In its place, a dark component appeared, surrounded by a thin gold border. Domain. The cathedral's voice spoke for the first time. Blankness confirmed as deliberate freedom. Source library access granted. Walls opened around the white chamber. Beyond them floated countless components. Fire, ice, shadow, steel, blood, light, cloth, hunger, echo, weather, dream, age, and stranger pieces I could not yet understand. I was not given all of them. The cathedral allowed me to choose one source component and carry domain as the reward. The obvious choices blazed like stars. Time could freeze moments. Space could expand red carpet arrival. Death could change the condition of damage deposit. I chose echo. Harper nearly dropped her camera. You had time. Time is always late. Echo fitted beside sound and repetition inside Pocket Thunder. The ability opened for revision. I did not replace the tiny blue sphere. I gave every precise snap an echo that could repeat from a different point around the target. Pocket Thunder became storm applause. I snapped once. Blue hands made from thunder appeared throughout the trial chamber. Some were small enough to rest on a shoulder. Others filled the sky. They all clapped at the same time. The shockwave did not touch Harper, Cole, or the watching expedition. It passed between them, through the doorway, and into the living skill statues gathering outside the cathedral. Hundreds of stone champions exploded in sequence. Blue thunder hands continued appearing down every corridor, applauding each destruction until the entire army became dust. The fixed-class hunters stood inside perfect calm circles, while the cathedral disappeared beneath rolling blue light. Harper's cameras spun around her. She had stopped speaking. Cole leaned on his spear and watched the last statue vanish. I liked the little spark better. It is still little. Above us, a thunder hand large enough to cover the cathedral slowly closed its fingers. Cole looked at it. Of course, the trial ended. I returned to the main hall with domain and echo in my library. Every legendary class emblem along the walls had dimmed. The blank circle above the entrance now showed a simple black branch edged in gold. Outside the cathedral, the expedition had been forced into battle. Adrian's breach released skill statues from every era. A dragon made of burning swords attacked the east tower. A giant archer fired stone arrows across the red sky. Fixed-class hunters used their ultimates, but each completed technique was swallowed by the ending engine whenever it approached Adrian. He stood on the shattered roof with the black wheel turning behind him. The borrowed coin had cracked one outer ring. He touched the damage and looked down at me. You rejected the source classes, he said. They had no blank branches. You mistake uncertainty for freedom. You mistake a large wheel for a personality. Adrian raised one hand. The ending engine released the techniques it had gathered. A glacier descended from one side of the sky. A sun lance rose from the other. Between them, Thousands of spectral weapons formed a storm aimed at the cathedral doors. The expedition barriers shattered before the attacks landed. I snapped. Storm applause filled the sky. Blue hands caught arrows between their palms. Others clapped the glacier into glittering snow. The largest fingers closed around the sun lance, compressed it to a golden bead, and flicked it through Adrian's broken roof. The cathedral shook. The white coat finally gained a black burn across one sleeve. Adrian looked at it for a long moment. Then he tore the entire roof away. The origin furnace hung above us. It was not a normal fire. It was a dark sphere filled with branching lights, each branch connected to an awakened person somewhere beyond the gate. Millions of skills shone inside it. The first gate had been built around the place where components were first assembled into fixed trees. Adrian's ending engine opened all its empty spaces. Black chains wrapped the furnace. Every hunter in the cathedral dropped to one knee as their class emblems pulled toward him. Harper's bells cracked. Cole's spear became transparent. Outside the gate, emergency screens showed skills flickering across the city. My abilities did not move. They were not branches from the furnace. Adrian saw that and smiled despite the burned sleeve. Then I will take yours directly. The white floor beneath me became black. The ending engine released every stolen ultimate at once. Adrian's gathered arsenal covered the whole cathedral. There was nowhere to dodge. A fixed defense could stop one element, perhaps two. But the ending engine had swallowed hundreds. Fire filled the ceiling. Ice crossed the floor. Blades descended between columns of poison, light, darkness, and crushing force. Every famous ultimate the expedition had brought into the first gate had returned under one command. My objective was not simply to survive. Harper and Cole were behind me, with their classes half pulled toward the furnace. The expedition filled the broken halls. If I let the cathedral fall, Adrian would take their skills and everyone attached to the lights inside that dark sphere. I owned domain. I had spent my entire awakening making separate abilities support one another by accident. Snack Break restored the stamina used by Polite Fall. Pocket Thunder could enter a damage deposit coin. Red Carpet Arrival could redirect any attack with a clear entrance. Domain gave all of those accidents a room. I added Command because the room needed rules. I added Shared Cost because every skill inside it had something another ability could use. The trigger was my open hand. The cost was every resource available among my creations. Mastery would expand the floor. One new skill appeared. House Rules. Inside the domain, my authored abilities could lend their triggers and costs to one another. The explanation took one sentence. The result covered the cathedral. I opened my hand. Black spread beneath my shoes, crossed the white floor, and climbed the broken walls. Gold lines unfolded across it like the plans for an impossible workshop. Every hunter I intended to protect stood inside a clean circle. Every stolen ultimate entered the dark space between those circles. My skills changed color. Storm Applause formed black thunder hands with golden bones. Red Carpet Arrival opened doors edged in workshop light. Damage deposit coins appeared above every point where an attack struck. Snack Break created a long black table behind me, covered in food from the cathedral trial. Polite Fall became a single gold word beneath the entire domain. Down. Adrian's arsenal landed. House Rules let damage deposit borrow the domain's size. Instead of my body receiving every blow, the black floor received them. Coins rose by the thousands. Fire became a coin. Ice became a coin. Blades struck, vanished, and reappeared as dark discs spinning above the workshop. The force still reached me. Cracks opened across my arms and chest. House Rules let Snack Break borrow the injury trigger from damage deposit. So food rose from the table and flew into my mouth whenever another wound appeared. Harper watched a pastry hit me in the face while a dragon-shaped flame disappeared into a coin. "This is either genius or the worst dinner show alive," she said. "It can be both." Cole caught a loaf of bread before it struck my shoulder. "You are fighting the strongest hunter in the world with snacks." "I fought the last boss with a frying pan. Respect the progression." The ending engine increased its output. Adrian fed the cathedral statues into it. Ancient ultimates joined the storm. A silver sword the length of a tower split the domain from above. I snapped. Storm Applause borrowed Red Carpet Arrival's marked entrances. Thunder hands appeared along the sword blade instead of crossing the distance. They clapped inward. The tower sword shattered into glowing pieces, and crimson doors carried those pieces toward damage deposit before they touched an ally. House Rules was not one complicated answer. It was a stage where every familiar answer could stand in the correct place. Adrian descended through the storm. The black wheel cut through his white coat and fused with his back. Class emblems turned across his skin. He struck the domain with his palm. The floor folded. Half the coins launched into the walls. Harper's protected circle cracked. Cole lost the light in his spear completely and dropped to one knee. Adrian had not used a stored skill. The strength belonged to his apex class itself. He reached for my chest. Complete abilities always return to a source, he said. The wheel behind him pulled. Pocket thunder tore from my hand as a blue strand. Polite fall lifted from the floor. The connection hurt more than the furnace beast's fire. Adrian was taking the finished shapes directly, exactly as he promised. I caught his wrist. You are still thinking like a class collector. I opened Pocket Thunder for revision before it left me. I changed nothing important. I moved its cooldown from the completed skill into house rules for 1 second. The technique stopped being complete. Adrian's wheel lost its grip. I returned the cooldown and snapped against his palm. Storm applause erupted inside the space between our hands. Blue-black thunder broke 3 emblems across his chest and threw him through the workshop wall. He crossed the cathedral, struck a tower, and remained embedded in white stone while coins fell around him like dark rain. The expedition saw him bleed for the first time. Cole forced himself upright. Do it again. Harper aimed every surviving camera at the broken tower. Wait until he makes an entrance. She understood me too well. Adrian pushed free. The white coat hung in strips. His black wheel had lost another outer ring. He was still smiling, but the expression required effort now. You can keep them unfinished, he said. I can keep them alive. He looked at the thousands of coins above house rules. Every impact from his arsenal waited there. I could refund them, but the cathedral still held millions of class connections. A wide attack would kill the people I was protecting. Adrian knew it. He walked toward the origin furnace. Cole threw his spear. The red point crossed the hall and pierced Adrian's shoulder. For 1 second, the spear's light returned. Adrian looked back at him. Cole pulled on the weapon and dragged the antagonist away from the sphere. You are not the only person here. Adrian touched the spear. The ending engine swallowed its completed piercing skill. The red shaft became ordinary metal. Cole did not release it. He used both hands and pulled harder. Adrian drove one fist into his stomach. The impact lifted Cole from the floor. Damage deposit caught part of the force because he stood inside my domain, creating another coin. He coughed blood, planted his feet, and kept the spear buried. Wyatt, he said. I made him move. Adrian hit him again. I opened red carpet arrival beneath Cole. The rival dropped through a crimson door and landed inside Harper's protected circle before the third blow. Another door opened behind Adrian. I stepped through it and kicked him away from the furnace. He blocked with one forearm. The collision cracked the cathedral's central tower. I used breeze skip inside the domain, not red carpet arrival. The old movement left a cyan line. Adrian followed and caught my coat. I stepped again. He struck the place I was going. His fist passed through a crimson doorway that appeared at the end of my cyan trail and hit his own back. Damage deposit recorded both impacts. I snapped. Thunder Hands borrowed the black coins as knuckles and punched him from every side. Adrian destroyed the first wave with stored sword light. He burned the second with the remains of the sun lance. The third carried no new power. It simply repeated faster than his fixed class could release abilities. Each golden knuckle broke another emblem. The wheel behind him shrank. Adrian roared and finally used the center of the ending engine. Darkness swallowed the domain. Every stored technique inside his class collapsed into a single beam with no color because it contained too many colors at once. The attack struck my open hand. House rules cracked from one end to the other. Protected circles shattered. The black table became dust. Every remaining snack launched into the air. I held the beam anyway. Damage deposit formed one coin above my palm. The disc expanded from button to plate, from plate to shield, from shield to a dark moon. Gold fractures spread across it. My arm bent. Snack Break tried to heal me with flying pieces of fruit, bread, and one final square of candy. Harper rang her broken bells. Solid sound wrapped my elbow. Cole drove his powerless spear into the floor behind my heel. The expedition added no attacks. They simply held the cathedral steady while I received Adrian's masterpiece. He pushed harder. I took one step forward, then another. The beam divided around the growing coin. Black force carved trenches past the protected hunters but did not touch them. Adrian's expression changed as I crossed the distance. The ending engine had ended every opponent he faced by making their own ultimates part of his final attack. None of the power in my hand belonged to a fixed tree. It belonged to the room I had made. I reached him and closed my fingers around the coin. House rule, I said. Guests return what they break. Storm applause clapped. The stored beam left my fist as a narrow black line. It passed through Adrian without spreading, crossed the central hall, and stopped 1 inch before the origin furnace. House rules controlled the boundary so precisely that the sphere behind him never trembled. Adrian remained standing. His white coat looked untouched from the front. Then the ending engine split down the center. Every stolen skill emblem poured from the break as light. They flew back to the expedition. Cole's spear ignited red. Harper's cracked bells became silver again. Far beyond the gate, hunters saw their status screens recover. Adrian fell to one knee. The black and gold domain faded. I stayed upright in the only unbroken strip of cathedral floor. Harper approached carefully. "Is it over?" Adrian laughed. The sound came from the man on one knee and from the origin furnace behind him. Black chains tightened around the sphere. He had allowed the engine to break because the released class emblems opened a path into their source. Every returned ability had become a line he could follow back to the furnace. His body split into silhouettes. The white coat burned away. The black wheel sank through his spine, and his shadow stretched across the dark sphere. I tried to reopen house rules. My status interrupted me. Original ability ecosystem recognized. Custom class conditions fulfilled. Original class registered ability architect. Black and gold branches spread across my empty tree. Breeze skip rested at the root, still small and cyan. Every creation connected through house rules, but the spaces above them remained blank. Adrian looked at the new class emblem on my chest. His own transformation pulled the cathedral apart around him. "You finally completed a class," he said. "I registered a workspace. Then it can burn." He entered the origin furnace. The dark sphere opened like an eye. Adrian emerged larger than the cathedral, wrapped in millions of branching skill lights. The ending engine became a ring around his entire body. One hand carried fire from every mage path. The other held the combined weapons of every warrior class. Wings made from summons spread across the red sky. Final class eater. He closed one hand around the cathedral. I opened crimson doors beneath Harper, Cole, and the expedition. Red carpet arrival sent them toward the first gate exit. Harper fought the pull long enough to leave one camera bell beside me. "You had better make this worth the repair bill," her voice said through it. "Keep the wide angle." Adrian tore the cathedral from its foundation. The first gate reversed. Instead of pulling the expedition inward, it carried the cathedral into the sky above the city. White towers broke through the clouds. The enormous furnace hung beneath them like a second night sun. Every screen in the world showed Adrian rising with it. Black threads spread from his body. This time, they did not flicker and vanish. They connected to every awakened skill tree on the planet and began to pull. Millions of hunters dropped where they stood. Harper's broadcast went silent for one breath, then returned from the plaza below. She had landed with Cole and the expedition. Behind her, people stared upward while their class emblems lifted from their bodies as glowing branches. Adrian's voice crossed the world without a screen. "All paths end in me." I stood alone on the falling cathedral, surrounded by the abilities I had written myself. "Then you chose the wrong ending," I said. The stolen cathedral began to fall toward the city. It was large enough to erase every district beneath it. Adrian floated above the ruins with the origin furnace inside his chest, pulling skill trees from millions of awakened people. The more branches reached him, the larger his transformed body became. My objective had two parts. Stop the cathedral before it struck the city. Stop the extraction without destroying the abilities trapped inside Adrian. The second part prevented the easy answer. Damage deposit could return enough force to break him, but every glowing branch wrapped around his body belonged to someone else. Storm applause could fill the sky, but a careless clap would shatter the stolen skills. I needed scale and control at the same time. I started with the falling cathedral. Polite fall had always commanded gravity downward. I revised the direction, not the skill. House rules spread the command across the ruins, and the black and gold word appeared beneath every tower. Up, the cathedral stopped. Its lowest spire hung 20 feet above the tallest buildings. Wind from the sudden halt flattened trees and sent abandoned cars sliding through the streets. I opened red carpet arrival across the city. Crimson doors caught the cars before they hit shelters and returned them to empty parking lots. One door caught a street vendor's cart and delivered it onto the cathedral beside me. The vendor was gone. The cart still carried hot pretzels. Snack break recognized food. I took one and left payment under the register. Harper's voice returned through the camera bell. "Are you eating? The city is full of falling buildings. Looting would look bad. You opened a space door for a pretzel. It was already in motion." Her broadcast carried the exchange across every active screen. Fear in the shelters turned into confused laughter. More importantly, millions of people saw the cathedral stop above their roofs while I stood on its edge eating with one hand. Adrian looked down. The final class eater had no human face left, but the arrangement of lights changed around his head. Anger made the skill emblems burn red. He swung the arm containing every warrior path. A blade crossed the horizon. The attack was not aimed at me. It was aimed at the city beneath the cathedral, forcing me to choose between protecting people and attacking him. I drew one crimson door from east to west. The blade entered it above the rooftops. The exit opened in the empty red sky left inside the first gate. The attack cut that sky in half and returned as a harmless line of sunset behind Adrian. The crowd in the plaza watched the horizon split without a single window breaking. Cole pushed through the weakened expedition and planted his spear beneath the cathedral's central anchor. The weapon had recovered, but his class tree was being pulled from his body again. Red light peeled from his shoulders. "I can hold the anchor," he called. "Fight him. You can barely stand. I made you step, once. Then I am overqualified." He drove the spear deeper. Its completed skills started moving toward Adrian. Cole gripped the shaft and physically held the red branches in place. He had no clever answer to a world-scale extraction. He simply refused to release his class. That was why he remained entertaining. Harper lifted every bell she could summon. Instead of attacking, she connected them to screens, speakers, and surviving communication crystals. Her desire had always been to record the greatest hunter spectacle in history. The world was ending above her, and she had finally found a wide enough shot. "You have a global audience," she told me. "All of them, every screen I can reach." I looked at Adrian. "Then keep the camera steady." Red carpet arrival opened beneath my foot. I stepped through a doorway drawn across the moon and emerged above the final class eater's head. Storm applause appeared around me. Thousands of blue-black hands clapped inward, not at Adrian's body, but at the black chains connecting him to the furnace. The first chain broke. Thousands of stolen branches flew free and returned to their owners. Across the plaza, fallen hunters gasped as their status windows relit. The second chain bent. Adrian opened his fire hand. Every completed flame spell in the furnace erupted at once. A burning sphere swallowed the thunder hands and continued toward me. I told the fire to fall. Polite fall dragged the sphere downward, but there was no empty ground beneath us. The city waited below. I opened a door under the attack. It entered the ocean floor of the first gate and turned an endless black sea to steam. Adrian's weapon hand struck before the door closed. I crossed both arms. Damage deposit formed a coin behind my back as the blow launched me through 3 cathedral towers. White stone exploded around me. I landed inside the old class selection chamber, now open to the sky. The screen I had used as a chair remained cracked in one corner. Snack break created a small table from it. The pretzel restored enough stamina to stand. Adrian descended toward the opening. Stolen summons formed around him. Dragons, giants, wolves, angels, machines, and creatures too old to have names. They were not copies of individual monsters. They were the completed summon forms from every fixed path he had consumed. House rules unfolded through the chamber. The summons attacked. I opened crimson doors across the floor. A dragon flew through one and collided with a giant exiting another. Storm applause used the doors as marked entrances, placing thunder hands directly around wings and claws. Polite fall pressed the enormous creatures into neat rows without touching the skill branches inside them. I could destroy all of them in one wide clap. Instead, I showed the world what control looked like. One finger snapped. Hundreds of tiny thunder hands reached inside the summoned forms and pinched only the black threads connecting them to Adrian. The threads broke in a sequence of small blue flashes. Dragons dissolved into harmless sparks. Giants became drifting emblems. Every freed summon path returned through Harper's broadcast rings to the hunters below. The entire army vanished while the class selection chamber remained intact. Adrian landed in front of me. His transformed body had shrunk enough for the white outline of his human shape to appear within the skill lights. "You are returning power to people who can never equal you," he said. "I need them alive to understand the difference." Harper's laughter escaped through the camera bell. Adrian drove his fist into house rules. The domain shook. He had learned from the first fight. Instead of releasing a completed ultimate I could dismantle or redirect, he poured raw furnace pressure through the blow. Black and gold floor tiles broke beneath me. Damage deposit stored the impact, but the coin formed inside Adrian's hand. He grabbed it before I could refund. "Your creations have triggers," he said. "That makes them paths." He crushed the coin. Stored force detonated between us. The class selection chamber disappeared. I flew out through the cathedral wall and fell toward the city. Red carpet arrival refused to open. Adrian had trapped my black coin inside the furnace. Because house rules linked my abilities, the furnace pressure traveled backward through the shared domain and jammed their triggers. Pocket Thunder waited for a snap that would not complete. Polite Fall ignored my command. Snack Break showed food with no recovery. He had not taken my powers away. He had placed so much weight on their shared room that none of the doors could move. The city rose beneath me. Harper sent a silver ring upward. It cracked before reaching half the distance. Cole pulled his spear from the anchor and threw it. Red light carried the weapon toward me, but his stolen branches slowed it. I still had one ability outside house rules, Breeze Skip. The first skill had been revised into Red Carpet Arrival, but its original movement remained at the root of my class. No domain, no borrowed cost, just wind, step, movement, stamina, and repetition. I stepped on empty air. A tiny cyan line appeared beneath my shoe. The dash moved me 12 feet sideways. I was still falling, but Cole's spear passed through the place my hand had occupied. I used breeze skip again and caught the red shaft. The force swung me under the cathedral. I planted the spear tip into a hanging tower and stopped above the skyline. In the plaza, Cole fell to one knee without his weapon. "That was my throw," he shouted through Harper's bells. "It counts as making you move." "You missed. You caught it. After moving." "Exactly." I looked up at Adrian. He had trapped my custom class using the most elaborate attack he could design. The weak skill everyone mocked on Awakening Day still worked. I climbed back toward him one short cyan step at a time. Each movement looked tiny beneath the world-scale battlefield. Adrian watched me approach with the confidence of someone who had swallowed legends. He released a rain of fixed-class weapons. Breeze skip crossed between them. He sent flames. I moved through the narrow gaps. He pressed the furnace's gravity downward. I used the same crude dash against it until repetition made the cyan trail brighter. The entire world saw me return without a legendary technique. By the time I reached his chest, Breeze Skip had activated more times in 1 minute than during my entire Awakening Day. I stepped onto the black coin trapped inside the furnace. My foot touched the old skill through Adrian's body. House rules opened. The domain had not been broken. It had been waiting for one unshared trigger to start the workshop again. Black and gold lines burst across Adrian's transformed skin from the inside. Storm applause snapped every thread around the trapped coin. Damage deposit returned to my hand. Polite fall pressed the furnace away from the city. Snack break restored my burned legs with the last bite of pretzel. Adrian struck at me. I used breeze skip, appeared behind the blow and tapped the center of his back. "You built an ending engine," I said. "You forgot the restart button." Storm applause clapped inside him. The final class eater split open. Millions of skill branches exploded into the sky like a second galaxy. Harper's broadcast followed them across the world. Each returned to the person it belonged to. In the plaza, hunters rose. Across distant cities, class emblems relit. Adrian's enormous form collapsed until only the human outline remained, suspended before the origin furnace. For one breath I thought the extraction was over. Then he reached backward and pushed both hands into the dark sphere. The furnace stopped returning skills. Every remaining branch fused with its core. Adrian pulled the entire source out of the cathedral. The dark sun sank into his chest. His human body remained small, but the red sky folded toward him. The gate, the cathedral, and the clouds all bent around one white figure. He no longer carried every class. He carried the force that had created them. The ending engine formed above his palm as a colorless sphere wider than the city. It contained enough power to erase the cathedral, the gate, and everything below. My abilities worked again. That did not mean they could stop it safely. Adrian looked toward Harper's cameras. He wanted the world to witness the final attack. He wanted every hunter to understand that their restored powers had never mattered. I wanted the same audience for a different reason. I raised one hand and called through the broadcast. "Make it larger." The plaza went silent. Adrian stared at me. "That version will not fit my finish," I said. The colorless sphere expanded. Adrian had spent his life proving that completed paths could be stacked into something larger. I asked him to overcharge the greatest attack in history, and pride made the choice before caution could speak. He fed the remaining red sky into the ending engine. The first gate disappeared around the sphere. The cathedral towers stretched toward it and became white lines. Clouds spiraled upward from every horizon. In daylight, stars became visible through the pressure. Harper's broadcast carried one image across the world. Me standing on the edge of a ruined tower with one hand raised, waiting beneath a colorless sun. Adrian's human outline floated behind it. "You cannot redirect this," he said. "There is nowhere outside its reach." "Then it is almost large enough." He expanded it again. The dark sphere in his chest cracked. Origin light poured through his ribs. He had fused with the furnace, but even his body was not meant to contain raw source power. That no longer mattered to him. He believed I had nowhere to put the attack. He was correct. Damage deposit could store force. I survived. The ending engine would kill me before the coin finished forming. Polite fall could hold the sphere for a moment, but pressing it down meant crushing the city. Red carpet arrival could open a doorway, but the attack now reached every marked entrance inside the gate. House rules showed me the available pieces. I did not invent another skill. I reused everything. Polite fall pushed upward against the colorless sun. The gold command appeared across its underside. The attack slowed. Cathedral towers stopped stretching and fell back into shape. Storm applause surrounded the sphere. Millions of thunder hands pressed inward, compressing the outer force away from the city. They broke by the thousands. Blue fragments rained over the cathedral. Red carpet arrival opened doors around the edges. Each door caught a portion of the pressure and returned it to the top, folding the attack against itself. Damage deposit waited above my palm. Adrian lowered both hands. The ending engine descended. Every golden command shattered. Every thunder hand vanished. The crimson doors bent flat. Colorless light reached me and erased the tower under my feet. I caught it. The first contact burned the glove from my hand. Damage deposit formed a coin no larger than a seed. Force entered faster than the skill could store it. House rules spread the impact through the empty cathedral, turning entire walls black, but there was too much. My arm broke. Snack break called for food. The black table had been destroyed. The pretzel was gone. My coat pockets contained shattered cores, a folded note, and one square of candy I had overlooked because it had melted into the lining during the banquet trial. House rules pulled it free. The candy struck my mouth like a hot piece of stone. Snack break activated. Green light repaired my arm. The ending engine broke it again. Recovery repaired my ribs. Source pressure crushed them. Every breath became a cycle of destruction and restoration while the black coin grew from seed to button. Adrian laughed above the attack. He thought I was using food to delay death. He had forgotten Snack break's growth condition. Repetition. Every injury triggered recovery. Every recovery counted as another meal's effect. The single piece of candy repeated through house rules, restoring me hundreds of times without becoming larger or more impressive. Snack break opened for revision. I had gained survival from the Hornwolf's defeated skill and the river boss. I placed it beside recovery. I kept food, sitting, and repetition. There was no chair left, so house rules let the cathedral count as a table and the entire falling tower count as my seat. The skill did not receive a grand new name. Snack break became emergency snack break. If I survived one bite, recovery repeated until the current danger ended. It was silly. It was also exactly what I needed. Green fire covered my body. The colorless attack stripped it away, and it returned. My black coat burned to the shoulders but refused to vanish completely. The coin reached the size of my palm. Damage deposit cracked. I added survival to it through house rules. The skill did not become stronger, it became stubborn. Gold lines sealed each fracture while the stored force continued growing. Adrian saw the coin and pushed more power downward. The origin furnace inside him emptied. The attack reached its final size. I stood up beneath it. Polite Fall no longer tried to move the whole sphere. I used mastery to press only the force touching the city upward. The bottom of the attack flattened above the rooftops. Windows shook. Streets cracked. Every person beneath it remained alive. That precision cost more than stopping the attack outright. Holding one giant weight was simple. Holding millions of separate edges so none of them crossed a roof, shelter, bridge, or hospital made blood run from my eyes. House rules drew golden outlines around every protected place. The city became a black map beneath the colorless sun, and each living block occupied its own calm shape. Adrian tried to break my concentration by shifting the sphere sideways. The western edge rolled toward the river shelters. I commanded that edge up. The eastern edge dipped toward the tournament district. Storm Applause caught it with a field of blue palms. He twisted the whole attack, turning the sky like a wheel. Red carpet arrival opened along the rotation and carried the pressure back to the top. He changed direction again. I changed the workshop faster. Harper began calling out districts through the camera bell. North rail is clear, river shelters holding. The old arena barrier just cracked. I opened a crimson doorway under the cracked barrier. The exit appeared behind a mountain on the 10th floor of the first gate. A portion of the attack entered, struck the dead stone, and returned to damage deposit as another golden line. Arena clear, I said. You sound mildly busy. The pretzel was dry. She turned that answer toward the shelters. People who had been staring at the end of the world heard me complain about food while carrying it. Panic did not disappear, but it changed shape. They stopped running. They watched. Cole used that stillness to organize the restored hunters around the cathedral anchor. He had no sound class, so Harper repeated his orders. Fire paths sealed ruptured gas lines. Stone paths reinforced the roads beneath my gravity field. Summoners carried the injured away from falling debris. None of their attacks could stop Adrian's sphere, but their returned abilities kept the stage intact while I handled the part in the sky. Adrian saw the city refusing to collapse. He released his hold with one hand and pointed at the plaza. A narrow thread peeled away from the sphere. It was small compared with the main attack, but it carried enough source force to erase everyone around the anchor. He expected me to loosen my grip on the sun to block it. Cole stepped in front of the thread. His red spear could not cut raw origin power. He knew that. He planted it anyway and lowered his shoulder, prepared to make the attack spend one fraction of a second on him. I used Last Step's ancestor before Last Step existed. Breeze Skip moved me from the tower to the nearest crimson mark. Red carpet arrival opened from that mark, and Storm Applause reached through. One thunder hand closed around the thread inches from Cole's spear. Damage deposit borrowed its injury trigger through house rules and stored the force before it touched him. A second black coin appeared beside the sun-sized one. It was no larger than the coin I had used against the river boss. I flicked it back at Adrian. He raised the ending engine to absorb the refund. The small coin entered his shoulder and turned his pointing arm backward. His own hand struck the colorless sphere. A crack crossed its surface. For the first time, the world-ending attack shook because Adrian hit it himself. Cole looked up at me through the closing door. I had that. You had a broken spear. It is still sharp, so is broken glass. I do not appoint it to the front line. Harper's camera caught him trying not to smile. The brief distraction cost me. Adrian repaired the crack by pulling the last loose origin light from the gate. The sphere dropped another 10 feet. Cathedral stone turned white beneath it and vanished. My calm shapes shrank until every protected roof stood beneath its own thin golden ceiling. I stopped talking. The crowd understood the change. Harper lowered her voice. Cole gripped his spear. Adrian leaned forward with both arms extended, forcing the entire weight of the source into my hand. I bent one knee. The black coin grew. I bent the second. It grew again. Adrian's attack had crossed countries as light. Mine remained a dark disk above one burned palm. The contrast made him furious. He wanted a larger engine, a louder end, a spectacle nobody could misunderstand. Damage deposit turned all of it into something that looked like spare change. That was the most insulting shape the power could have taken. Storm applause returned as tiny hands around the coin, clapping each layer of incoming force into the black disc. Red carpet arrival opened microscopic doors across my burned palm, giving every impact a direct entrance to damage deposit. The rules remained simple. Hold the attack, store the force, protect the city. The spectacle looked like a black coin swallowing a sun. Harper's cameras could barely contain it. Her voice shook over the broadcast, but she kept narrating. The sphere is getting smaller. The coin is getting larger. I have no sensible explanation for either. Cole stood beneath the cathedral with his spear locked against the anchor. Restored hunters gathered around him. Their classes could not touch the source attack, but they held the streets, carried civilians, and kept the ruins from shifting. Cole looked up through the light. He told Adrian to make it larger, he said into one of Harper's bells. Of course he did. The final edge of the ending engine entered damage deposit. Daylight returned. Above my palm floated a black coin the size of a sun. Gold cracks webbed across it. Each one contained a storm, a blade, a flame, a summon, or some ancient force that had once become a class. The coin did not pull the stolen skill trees. Those had already returned. It held only the raw impact Adrian had chosen to release. The world saw me carrying it with one hand. Adrian floated beyond the empty furnace, with no attack left. His human body had returned, burned and cracked by the source. The white coat was gone. Black emblems covered his skin. He looked at the coin, then at the city beneath me. Refund it, he said. If I struck him, the force would cross the cathedral and the planet behind it. If I sent it upward, it would tear through the gate boundary and return from every red doorway I had marked. Damage deposit required one chosen strike. I could not choose nothing. Adrian understood the limitation. He started laughing again. You built a perfect weapon you cannot use. I lowered my hand slightly. The coin moved with it. Gravity around the city bent. People fell toward the sky for a heartbeat before polite fall corrected the pressure. He approached through the remaining white ruins. No giant form, no army, no ultimate. He did not need them while my own stored force threatened everyone I was protecting. Adrian struck me across the face. Emergency snack break repaired the damage, but the black coin trembled. He hit me again. Every creation becomes a cage once it is complete. I used breeze skip to move around the third blow while keeping my palm beneath the coin. He followed. The raw furnace emblems on his skin let him cross space without a named skill. He caught my throat and drove me through a cathedral wall. I could not refund the coin. I could not drop it. I could not place it inside house rules because it already contained more force than the domain could hold. Harper shouted through the camera bell. Cole pulled his spear free and prepared to throw it again. Stay down, I told him. Polite fall pressed the spear to the plaza. This finish belonged to the first thing I made. I used breeze skip under Adrian's arm. One cyan line moved me 12 feet. He crossed the distance instantly and kicked me back beneath the black sun. I stepped again. The skill had repeated thousands of times through the expedition and the final battle. Its distance had not grown much because I kept revising it toward control. But every use had marked a place I survived. My awakening hall, the beginner gate, the exam stadium, the tournament ring, the banquet trial, the river bridge, every floor of the first gate, the blank cathedral. Breeze skip cyan trail existed beneath red carpet arrival's crimson doors. It was the route connecting every location my abilities had touched. My system opened a final prompt. Ability architect evolution available. Condition. Create a god skill from the first authored ability. I held the black coin over a living city while Adrian came toward me with the broken origin furnace burning through his chest. There was no need for another element. I needed one step with a better destination. Breeze Skip had always answered one question. Where could I place my next foot? At first, the answer was 6 feet away. Repetition expanded it to 12. Red carpet arrival added distant doors, but those doors still required marked entrances. Every revision had made the skill more impressive without changing its first idea. The black coin above me contained the force of every completed path Adrian had gathered. The city below contained everyone I refused to hit. Somewhere beyond both waited an empty place large enough to receive the refund. I opened Breeze Skip. Wind marked where I left. Step remained the form. Movement remained the trigger. Stamina remained the cost. Repetition and mastery remained the growth. I added space from the first gate. I added command from the tournament. I did not add domain. House rules had already touched every ability I created. Its black and gold lines ran through the cyan route. If one of my skills had reached a place, the first step could recognize it. The preview showed an ordinary footprint. Last step. Every place touched by one of my authored abilities was now one step away. Adrian raised his hand. The remaining furnace emblems gathered around his fingers. Another movement skill? I created it. The cyan trail beneath my shoe turned black at the center and gold along the edge. It did not become wider. The sky did not shake. No legendary emblem appeared. I took one step. My foot landed on storm applause. There was no solid floor. A blue thunder hand had touched Adrian's shoulder earlier in the battle. Last step treated that touch as a place. I appeared beside his face before his fingers closed. He turned with source power already burning in his palm. I stepped onto Pocket Thunder's first mark. The stadium target from my license exam appeared beneath me for less than a heartbeat. I moved through the memory of the tiny smoking dot and returned inside the black emblem on Adrian's chest. Every place my skills had reached existed at the same distance now. One step. Adrian struck his own chest trying to hit me. The furnace crack widened. I stepped onto Polite Fall's command. Gravity had touched the tournament ring, the banquet trial beam, the river bridge, the basilisk, the cathedral, and the colorless sun. I stood in all of those downward directions at once, then chose the one behind Adrian. My heel struck his back. He flew toward the black coin. Adrian stopped himself with both hands. Raw source power formed a wall. He had no completed skill for damage deposit to read, no fixed technique for storm applause to break. He had reduced himself to pure force because he believed simplicity belonged only to him. I liked simple fights. He punched. I stepped. His fist crossed a crimson door. Red carpet arrival had opened on the ocean floor. Last step moved me to the wet mark. For one instant, I stood above the sea of boiling water created by his earlier sun attack. I picked up a drop on my shoe and stepped back. The drop struck his burning furnace core. Steam covered the cathedral. Adrian attacked through it, following the cyan line with origin sight. Last step no longer traveled along the line. It erased the distance between places already touched. He could see every destination and still could not know which one I would choose. I appeared on damage deposit. The black coin above us counted as a place because the skill had created it. My shoes touched its gold edge. The stored ending engine stretched beneath me like a dark world. Adrian stared upward. I walked across the coin. Each step landed on a different impact inside it. The Hornwolf's wind, the Glassback Ogre's charge, the Furnace Beast's fire, the River Boss's fists, Adrian's first arsenal. Every force I had survived became a point beneath my feet. The coin stopped trembling. Damage deposit had been trying to store countless attacks as one mass. Last step gave each impact its own place. House rules spread the command through them. Adrian understood what I was doing and rushed toward the city. If he reached the streets, he could force me to refund through him and everything behind him. Cole threw his spear. This time, Adrian caught it. The antagonist snapped the red shaft and drove both halves toward Harper's broadcast bells. He wanted to blind the audience and break the support holding the cathedral. I stepped onto Cole's earlier spear strike inside house rules. One foot landed between the broken halves. I caught them without looking away from Adrian. Red carpet arrival opened beside Cole in the plaza. I dropped the pieces through. Cole caught his ruined weapon and looked up. That was my best spear. It was your only spear. Then the statement is correct. I closed the door before he could continue. Harper's cameras remained active. One circled the black coin. Another stayed on Adrian. The last held a wide view of me standing between them. He can step anywhere one of his skills has touched, she told the world. Adrian heard the explanation. He opened the origin crack across his chest and released a white pulse that erased every visible mark from the cathedral. Crimson doors vanished. Thunder fragments disappeared. Black and gold lines went dark. Even gravity seemed to loosen. Then I will remove the places, he said. I took another step. The white pulse had struck my coat. Damage deposit stored a piece of it. Last step recognized the impact. I landed inside the attack Adrian had just used, crossed its empty center, and appeared with my hand around his furnace core. He had given me another place. His eyes widened. That reaction reached every screen. I pulled. The origin furnace came halfway out of his chest. Black chains tightened around it. Adrian grabbed my wrist and drove raw power through my body. Emergency snack break restored each injury, but the final candy repetition was weakening. Green light flickered across my skin. He forced the furnace back inside. I let him. My hand had touched the source. Last step now recognized the place where every fixed class began. I stepped into the furnace. The battlefield vanished. I stood inside a dark sky filled with skill trees. Millions of golden branches stretched in every direction. Each tree began at the same bright root, then divided into fixed paths. A swordsman tree offered the same blades. A fire tree offered the same flames. There were legendary branches and common ones, but all of them grew toward destinations chosen long before their current owners awakened. Adrian's chains wrapped around the roots. He entered behind me as a giant silhouette made from black emblems. This is the source, he said. Your empty tree is nothing beside it. My own class appeared above my palm. It was still mostly blank. Breeze skip formed the root, pocket thunder, polite fall, snack break, damage deposit, red carpet arrival, storm applause, and house rules spread as black branches edged in gold. Beyond them waited an endless night sky with room for abilities that did not exist yet. The fixed golden forest was larger. Mine had somewhere to grow. Adrian pulled the chains. Every tree in the furnace bent toward him. Outside, hunters screamed as their restored skills tried to leave again. I did not attack Adrian. I walked along the touch marks my abilities had left on the chains. Storm applause had struck one. Polite fall had pressed another. House rules had covered them all during the cathedral fight. One step carried me to the first chain. I snapped. A small blue hand pinched the link and broke it. One step carried me to the second. Pocket thunder pierced the black metal at its oldest crack. The third chain received a damage deposit coin containing only the force Adrian used to pull it. The refund sent that force backward and tore the link from his body. I did not need a new power for each chain. I gave familiar abilities perfect placement. Adrian expanded until his shadow covered the forest. Black emblems became a blade in his hand. He cut through thousands of golden branches to reach me. The owners outside lost skills as the paths shattered. I commanded the broken branches to fall upward. Polite fall lifted them away from the blade. Red carpet arrival opened crimson doors along their roots. Last step walked the pieces through those doors and returned them to the exact trees they had left. The repairs crossed the furnace faster than Adrian could destroy it. He swung again. I stepped onto the first day breeze skip touched the awakening hall floor. For one instant, the source forest became that ceremony stage. Adrian's giant blade passed over the bench where I had discovered create new skill. 300 people laughed in the memory. The examiner pointed me aside. Harper's camera turned toward the blank screen. I stood beside my younger self and watched cold air curl around his shoe. The weakest version of breeze skip moved 6 feet and crashed into a snack machine. Last step used that same cyan mark. I returned to the furnace behind Adrian's giant silhouette and pressed one finger against the center emblem. This is where you made your mistake, I said. Pocket thunder fired. The tiny sphere entered the ending engine's original mark. Storm applause echoed it through every broken outer ring. Damage deposit added the force Adrian had used to strike me across the entire battle. Polite fall commanded the cracks inward. The giant silhouette folded around one coin-sized blue spark. Adrian returned to human size. His chains fell from the skill trees. Outside the furnace, the black coin carrying his final attack waited above a living world. I still needed a safe destination for the refund. Now I had one. My hand had touched the source root before fixed classes became branches. Beyond that root was blank space, not another world, not a populated sky, not a marked doorway. It was the unwritten distance before any path existed. Last step placed one foot there. I opened red carpet arrival behind the black coin. The crimson door did not lead to the first gate. It led beyond the first branch. The red doorway opened against a place that had never held anything. No city waited behind it. No class tree. No gate. The black coin could refund every strike inside itself without crossing a living target. Adrian saw the destination and finally stopped smiling. He threw himself at the doorway. If he closed it before the refund, the coin would remain above the city. The furnace forest shook around us as he pulled every broken black chain into his arms. They became armor, claws, and wings. He had lost the ending engine, but raw origin force still obeyed him. I stood between him and the door. Our final confrontation did not need a new mechanic. He wanted the doorway closed. I wanted to take one last step through him. Adrian's first strike used the weight of every fixed tree. Golden branches bent behind his fist. I used polite fall on myself. Gravity pulled me beneath the blow so quickly that the air above my head split. I snapped upward. Pocket thunder struck his chin and echoed through storm applause as a ring of blue hands. He tore the hands apart and kept moving. His second strike became a black spear made from the chains. It pierced my shoulder and carried me toward the source root. Emergency snack break tried to restore the wound, but the repeated candy finally disappeared. Green light went out. Adrian twisted the spear. "Your joke has ended," he said. I looked at the black weapon through my shoulder. It was a limited edition. Damage deposit stored the pain as a coin inside the wound. I refunded it through my palm. The force did not explode. House rules gave polite fall control of the direction. The narrow strike ran along Adrian's spear, entered his arm and broke every chain wrapped around it. I pulled myself free. He opened wings made from stolen class emblems and reached the crimson threshold. Cole's red spearhead appeared through a tiny door beside me. The weapon was broken, but the point still carried his fixed path. He had thrown it from the plaza without knowing whether any doorway remained. Last Step recognized the earlier mark and brought the spear through. I caught it. Adrian turned. "That path belongs to the furnace. He is going to be unbearable if this works." I used Breeze Skip. One short cyan dash carried the broken spear through Adrian's wing. The point pinned 3 black emblems to the ground. Cole's mastery had survived every extraction. His path was fixed, but it was his. Adrian ripped free and shattered the spearhead. Outside, Cole fell backward into the plaza. Harper's bell caught his head before it hit stone. "Did he use it?" he demanded. "You will mention this every day," Harper said. "That means yes." Adrian reached for the door again. I stepped onto the place where his hand had touched the tournament origin key. Last Step placed me beside his younger human outline hidden inside the transformation. I struck the same wrist that had once lifted the key from the ogre. The hand opened. I stepped onto the burn storm applause had left on his white sleeve. My heel hit his shoulder. I stepped onto the black coin he had trapped in the furnace. My knee hit his chest. I stepped onto every place he had been touched by one of my abilities. The attacks arrived from the history of the story rather than from different directions. Cyan footprints surrounded him. Each was only one ordinary step. Together, they drove him away from the crimson doorway and back toward the center of the source forest. Adrian tried to block them all. Raw origin armor covered his body. He made himself larger, then smaller, then covered the sky with chain wings. Last Step ignored scale. If an ability had touched the armor, I was already there. He released one final pulse. White force erased every skill effect inside the furnace. Blue thunder vanished. Golden commands disappeared. Crimson doors closed except for the one leading beyond the root. House rules went dark. Last Step remained. The pulse had touched Breeze Skip on the cathedral earlier. That contact was part of the skill's history. Erasing the mark only created another place for me to stand. I appeared in front of Adrian. No lightning, no gravity, no black coin. I used the same movement that had driven a horn through the first monster's skull. One foot planted on Adrian's chest. I stepped down. The source forest shook. His raw armor broke from the center outward. Black emblems scattered across the golden trees and dissolved. The origin furnace tore free from his body and returned to the root as a dark sphere. Adrian fell through the branches. I caught his collar. For a moment, he hung above the blank distance where the black coin waited to discharge. He looked past me at my unfinished class tree. "You still become a path." "Maybe." I pulled him close enough to hear the answer without Harper's broadcast. "But I choose the next branch." Then I threw him away from the doorway. He struck the root of the furnace. Golden branches wrapped around his arms and legs, not as a moral punishment, but because the source was reclaiming the power fused into him. His body returned to its original size. The black wheel behind him broke into ordinary metal pieces. Adrian remained conscious long enough to watch me turn my back. I stepped through the source root and returned to the real sky. The black coin floated above the cathedral. Harper's cameras caught me walking out of a crimson doorway onto its upper edge. Below, the city waited. Around the world, hunters watched their restored trees. I raised one finger. Damage deposit recognized the chosen strike. The coin entered the doorway. Refund. The unwritten distance received the ending engine. For 1 second, nothing happened. Adrian looked up from inside the furnace and laughed weakly. He thought the attack had failed. Then the blank sky beyond the root bloomed. A black and gold explosion spread where no world existed. It became larger than the first gate, larger than the furnace forest, larger than every completed branch Adrian had gathered. The light shone through the crimson doorway behind me and turned the entire sky into a dark sun edged with gold. I lowered my hand and walked toward Harper's camera bell. The explosion continued expanding behind my back. Across the plaza, people raised arms against the light. Cole looked from the sky to my face and shook his head. Harper did not say anything. For once, she understood that commentary would only make the moment smaller. The crimson door closed. The dark sun vanished. The city remained untouched. The lowest cathedral spire settled into the plaza with the softness of a feather because polite fall still held the ruins. Windows stopped shaking. Black threads disappeared from the world. Every awakened status stabilized. Inside the furnace, Adrian's connection broke completely. He dropped onto the white cathedral floor as an ordinary defeated apex hunter. The source sphere sealed above him. Golden trees returned to their proper shapes. My system filled the empty sky in front of me. First authored skill revised into God skill. World scale creation completed without inherited class branch. Original class evolution accepted. Ability architect evolved. God skill creator. The black tree inside my status unfolded. It did not become a completed golden path. The existing branches remained. Movement, thunder, gravity, recovery, impact, space, domain. Beyond them, points of light appeared across an endless night. Each light was an empty place where a future ability could grow. Last step settled at the root. Its name changed color from white to gold, but the skill description stayed simple. Every place touched by your creation is one step away. I closed the status before the world could see all the blank branches. Harper's camera bell floated closer. Did your class just evolve? Possibly. The global broadcast displayed God skill creator above my head. She tilted the camera toward it. The system is less committed to mystery than you are. Cole climbed onto the fallen cathedral with half a spear and no remaining patience. You used my throw in the final battle, briefly, so I helped defeat him. You delivered an object, a decisive object. It broke. After being decisive, the restored expedition followed him into the plaza. These were hunters who had entered the first gate as living legends. They stopped below the spire and looked up at me. Nobody asked my rank. The old categories had become too small during the last hour. The examiner from my awakening day stood at the edge of the crowd. He still carried the same tablet. My blank class line had caused it to display an error. Now the tablet smoked and shut itself off. I preferred the second result. Harper raised her voice for the final broadcast. The first gate is closing. Every stolen skill has returned. The city is intact. Adrian is defeated. She turned one camera toward the enormous valley damage deposit had carved beyond the wall earlier, mostly intact. I looked at the crowd, then at the millions watching through her bells. That hill was poorly placed. People began laughing. Then someone cheered. The sound spread across the plaza, up the cathedral, and through every open broadcast ring. The same world that had laughed at my blank status was now trying to pronounce God skill creator through damaged speakers. I adjusted the collar of what remained of my black coat. Only one sleeve survived. Harper zoomed in. That coat has died 4 times. It has a growth condition. Taylor Bills? Survival. The origin furnace descended into the cathedral. Its dark light faded. The first gate began folding around the ruins, returning each broken floor to the space beneath the city. Red carpet arrival opened evacuation doors for the expedition. Every team that had spent hours crossing the hazards walked out through one crimson step. The last doorway belonged to me. Before I used it, I looked back at Adrian. He sat against the sealed furnace with broken black metal around him. The elegant confidence was gone. What remained was a dangerous man without the world's skills inside him. He looked at last step's cyan mark across the floor. That was your weakest ability, he said. It still is. I closed the door on his expression. The first gate closed beneath the plaza at midnight. The celebration lasted longer. Hunters who had lost their classes tested every restored skill as soon as they left the evacuation doors. Fire rose between buildings. Summoned beasts climbed onto rooftops. A frost mage accidentally covered the emergency food tents in snow. Nobody complained. After feeling an empty status for even a few minutes, people wanted proof that their abilities still answered. I understood the feeling better than they expected. My tree had begun empty by choice or accident. Theirs had been ripped away. The difference showed in the way they touched their class emblems as though checking for a heartbeat. Then they saw me, and the touching stopped. The plaza opened a path without anyone giving an order. Famous hunters moved aside. Expedition commanders lowered their weapons. The same S-ranks who had arrived under banners watched my burned coat pass in silence. I had spent all day carrying attacks large enough to erase cities. That silence was the first thing that felt heavy. Harper ruined it. She climbed onto a piece of cathedral stone and shouted, "He has not been paid yet." The crowd turned toward the Hunter Council's reward pavilion. I had forgotten about payment. The council had prepared a table of relics for whoever reached the origin furnace. There were legendary weapons, sealed cores, rare armor, and enough gold to buy 3 apartment buildings. The expedition had entered with the assumption that its highest-ranked survivors would divide the reward. After the broadcast, nobody reached for anything. I selected the gold first. Cole looked offended. You can create god skills. Tailors accept money. Harper pointed at a silver crown-shaped relic on the table. That can command a dragon. It is shaped badly. I took a black sewing kit made from dungeon spider silk. Its description said the thread repaired any cloth that survived the attack which damaged it. My coat had survived enough attacks to qualify as a historical site. The final item was a small glass box containing the furnace beast's golden chef hat. The trial had rebuilt it after I dismantled the first one. Cole picked it up. This is yours. Put that down. He placed it on my head. Harper's cameras flashed from every angle. I used last step to appear behind Cole. The hat remained where I had been and dropped onto him instead. He tried to remove it. Polite Fall held it in place. The greatest spear prodigy in the city spent the rest of the celebration wearing a glowing chef hat. That recording became almost as popular as the final attack. By morning, rumors had crossed the world faster than accurate footage. Some people said I had created 1,000 skills. Others claimed my blank tree let me steal classes by looking at them. One report insisted I defeated Adrian without moving. Cole objected to that one publicly. He moved at least 3 times because of me, he said during Harper's interview. The real number was higher. His version made him happier, so I did not correct it. The most exaggerated rumor said the black coin had been larger than the moon. It had been larger than the visible moon from the plaza. Harper called the rumor disappointing. My new class created practical problems. Every rank crystal cracked when I touched it. Licensed systems replaced variable combatant with an empty gold box because God Skill Creator had no comparison category. Guilds sent invitations with numbers so large I briefly considered joining all of them and never attending. I refused. Adrian had built his entire power by feeding completed abilities into one engine. I had no desire to replace his wheel with someone else's schedule. Instead, I bought the top floor of the building where my apartment stood. Red carpet arrival connected every room. One door opened into a private training hall. Another led to a kitchen Harper immediately filled with emergency snacks. A third opened onto the roof, where Cole appeared each morning with a repaired spear and a new excuse for a rematch. He never used the front door. Front doors create boring fights, Harper told him once. You have made the situation worse, I said. She considered that praise. My component library settled after the furnace closed. I did not keep every source piece I had touched. Fire, ice, time, death, and the stranger ancient components returned to the cathedral. What remained were the pieces I had earned directly. Wind, step, sound, projectile, gravity, command, food, recovery, impact, storage, space, echo, domain, and the triggers, costs, and growth conditions attached to my creations. It was more than enough. God Skill Creator did not hand me omnipotence. It gave every original skill the potential to grow beyond fixed branches if I satisfied its own condition. Last Step had become the first God skill because thousands of movements and every marked location supported it. Pocket Thunder could reach that level one day, but it would require a precision display no Thunder class had achieved. Damage Deposit needed me to survive and return an impact even the world could not contain. I liked those conditions. They were promises, not instructions. The first week after the battle brought no gates. Adrian's extraction had shaken every dungeon, and monsters hid behind their barriers as though waiting to see whether I would notice them. Hunter teams cleared ordinary breaches without disaster. The city repaired the river bridge and named the new valley beyond the wall after me. I asked them to change it. They refused because the public already used the name Wyatt's Refund. Harper sold shirts. Cole bought one in secret and wore it under his combat coat. Storm Applause revealed the lettering when it blew the coat open during our next training match. He tried to claim the shirt had defensive properties. I let him finish explaining before Polite Fall pressed him into the floor. Your domain is unfair, he said with his cheek against the mat. You entered my apartment. For a sanctioned duel, you sanctioned it. I am an involved party. Harper recorded from the snack table. I can sanction it. You are eating my food, I told her. Broadcast fee. I could have become bored. Ordinary monsters no longer threatened me, and the strongest fixed-class hunters had watched me stop the source of their own power. Instead, I treated each creation as a chance to improve presentation. Storm Applause learned to clap only around rain, leaving people dry while the city flooded on both sides of them. Damage Deposit stored the impact of construction hammers and returned it through one finger to repair the bridge supports faster. Red Carpet Arrival carried commuters across closed streets, though I charged extra when they asked too many questions. The most useful ability remained Snack Break. Harper attempted to advertise it as the first divine lunch skill. I refused because Emergency Snack Break had returned to its original name after the battle. The survival revision became part of its growth, rather than a separate technique. You made immortality depend on candy, she said. Only temporary immortality. That is still marketable. 1 month after the first gate closed, the city rebuilt the tournament arena. The opening event was supposed to be an exhibition between the expedition's surviving champions. Every ticket sold in seconds because the announcement listed me as a possible guest. I had not agreed. Harper had written possible in very small letters under a large picture of my face. You cannot advertise me without permission, I said. I advertised possibility. The picture is 40 feet tall. Possibility needed readable eyes. Cole entered the exhibition wearing a new red spear and declared he would challenge me if I appeared. 12 fixed-class champions competed before him. He defeated them cleanly, never letting anyone cross the center line. The audience loved him until he pointed the spear at the empty entrance tunnel and shouted my name. Then they loved the idea of watching him lose. I waited on the roof across the city. Harper's cameras searched every entrance. Cole remained in the ring for 5 full minutes, refusing to leave. The crowd began chanting Skillsmith. He looked pleased because public humiliation still counted as attention if a fight followed. I could have opened a crimson door at center stage. That was expected now. Instead, I used last step on the mark Pocket Thunder had left during my license exam. One ordinary stride carried me from the rooftop to the old smoking dot beneath the rebuilt arena floor. I snapped. A tiny blue sphere rose through the stone under Cole's shoe. He felt it, jumped, and turned his spear downward. The spark stopped beneath him. Storm applause formed one giant hand under the entire ring. It lifted the arena platform into the sky. Walls opened. The rebuilt roof split apart. Cole, the judges, and every champion rose above the stadium on a stone disc held by blue thunder fingers. I stood on the palm behind them, black coat repaired, hands in my pockets. The crowd found me all at once. Cole turned slowly. You could have used a door. The entrance tunnel looked crowded. He attacked. His new spear released one straight red point. No 100-line storm, no wasted movement. He had refined his fixed path again. The strike reached my chest before the cheering stopped. Last step moved me onto the place his old spear had touched in the cathedral. I appeared beside his shoulder and tapped the new shaft with one finger. Polite fall told only the weapon to kneel. Cole held on. The spear bent toward the floating platform. His boots broke stone. The audience remembered the tournament final and began shouting for him to stay upright. He did. For 3 breaths, he fought the command. Then he released one hand, punched me in the jaw, and smiled. Damage deposit formed a small black coin. He saw it and immediately regretted the punch. I flicked the coin into his forehead with exactly the force he had used. Cole slid backward to the edge of the platform. He stopped 1 foot before falling and planted his spear. The crowd roared louder for that survival than for my attack. I liked that. A rival who broke immediately would become furniture. Cole lowered the spear. Serious step? Not even close. Your hair moved. Wind exists. He charged again. The exhibition lasted 4 minutes. I never used enough force to damage the platform. Cole forced 3 more steps according to him, and 0 according to any reliable witness. I ended the fight by opening red carpet arrival inside the giant thunder hand. The hand clapped once through the door and appeared as hundreds of small palms around his spear. They applauded. The weapon vibrated out of his grip and planted itself outside the ring. Cole remained in a fighting stance for a moment before noticing he held nothing. The audience became silent. I turned away. Polite fall lowered the platform into the stadium, while the result appeared behind me. Cole's spear stood beyond the boundary. The judges declared the match over. He looked from the weapon to my back. I hate when you do that. You will return tomorrow, obviously. The restored arena gave me a reward, despite the exhibition not being an official match. It was the fragment of black metal that had fallen from the first gate after Adrian's defeat. The piece reacted only to my class, so nobody else could identify it. I touched the fragment. My system opened Create New Skill. One component waited inside. Dream. The word did not belong to any branch in the origin furnace I had seen. It felt older than sleep and wider than the red sky. When I lifted it from the metal, every person in the stadium yawned at the same time. Harper dropped one camera by accident. Cole sat down in the ring and immediately looked offended by his own behavior. The sky above the arena cracked. Not a gate, not a dungeon. A thin line of midnight opened in broad daylight. Beyond it, something enormous turned in its sleep. One closed eye became visible behind the clouds. Every fixed class status in the stadium displayed the same warning. Unknown component source. No compatible path. My empty branches lit one by one. Harper raised her camera again. Please tell me you are not about to create a sleep skill. I looked at the dream component, the yawning crowd, and the eye beyond the sky. Mornings are inefficient. Cole retrieved his spear. Can it wait until tomorrow? The eye began to open. I pressed Create New Skill.